special meeting of the Sparta Township Planning Board. On behalf of the members of the entire planning board and our professionals, I'd like to thank everybody who's here in person, as well as those who may be streaming this meeting either an hour later on YouTube. This meeting is now called to order. For the record, this meeting is being held on June 26, 2024, at the Sparta Township Municipal Building located at 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The time is now 7:01. The live stream for this meeting may be viewed on YouTube at www.youtube.com/@Sparta Township, SPARTATWP. Please note that adequate public notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. I ask everyone please stand and join our board and our professionals as we proudly begin this meeting with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Dory, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Justin Canellis, Ernie Reichstad.
Here.
Christine Dunbar, Mike Sylvester, Vice Chairman Bill Enright.
Here.
Chairman Ron Day.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti.
Here.
Joan Furman. Here. Jeanette Burke. Here. Celeste Luciano, Brian Zimmerman.
All right, thank you. Before we start tonight's meeting, I just want to take a moment to express our condolences for the loss of Tom Collins' brother, Christopher John Collins. On behalf of the entire planning board and our professionals, we'd like to send our condolences, prayers, and thoughts to the entire Collins family. I'd also like to thank Mr. David Brady, who is here tonight serving in the capacity as our planning board attorney, Mr. Corey Stoner, who is serving in the capacity of our planning board engineer, and Mr. Michael Mastretta, who's serving in the capacity of our planning board planner. So thank you all for being here. So with that, we originally had 3 applications scheduled for our agenda tonight. However, I believe that 2, Lakeland Provident Bank, application 24-717, and Beveridge Corp., application 24.17, are being carried to a future meeting. Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, we should announce the date of those meetings
Okay.
and the time.
17.
They'll be July 17th at 7 p.m. All right, so that leaves us, so tonight, we're going to be hearing application 24-714, JVP Ventures LLC, for amended site plan and variance. The site, known as Pinecone Plaza, is located at 172 Woodport Road, Block 2015, Lot 18, within the C1 zone. So welcome to the folks representing JVP Ventures. Please feel free to come forward and introduce yourselves.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Bankendorf from the law firm of Askin and Hooker, representing the applicant, JVP Ventures LLC. Here on their behalf this evening is Joe Pasalacqua. We also have Jason Dunn and Matthew Smith. He's not here yet, but we can get started. Sit down. Do we want to swear in the witnesses, or you want me to just?
Sure, y'all swear in. Mr. Dunn, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And you've been in front of me before. State your name, spell your last name, and provide an address.
My name is Jason Dunn, D-U-N-N, at 11 Lawrence Road, Newton, New Jersey.
All right, Mr. Pasalacqua, you want to come up here and just be sworn in quickly, just in case we need your testimony?
Hello all.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And just like Mr. Dunn, state your name, spell your last name, and provide an address.
Joe Pasalacqua, Passalaqua, 23 Windermere Way in Sparta.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Before we get started with Mr. Dunn, Mr. Benkendorf, do you want to qualify him as an expert, or if the board wants to waive the qualification because he's been in front of us before and we've accepted him, we could do that, whichever way, Mr. Chairman.
I'm fine. Anybody have any issue? I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so
Right.
you're an expert.
My licenses in professional planning and landscape architecture are good.
Okay.
All right, so the property we're here tonight to discuss is commonly known as Pinecone Plaza. It's at 172 Woodport Road, Block 2015, Lot 18. It's a 1.56 acre lot in the C1 community and commercial zone. and it is surrounded by 3 separate roads. It's Woodport Road, Pinecone Lane, and Hunters Lane. We're before the board this evening by preliminary and final site plan approval with minor bulk variances. For the purpose of revitalization of the property, I don't know if you've been past it lately, but it certainly needs this revitalization and essentially an upgrade. It's not just to the building, but it's also to the property and the signage. Specifically, there are 6 units in the building, but ultimately the goal is to make only 5 units in the building for 5 tenants. Those 5 tenants include a nail salon, a dry cleaner, a women's fitness center. There is 1 tenant that we're working on right now. It is an exterminator. And the final tenant is on the 2nd floor, and it is an accountant. We're going to be combining 2 of the units that exist in the property to create 1 larger unit for the accountant. His business is good. There are 5 variances. Of those 5 variances that we're going to be requesting this evening, 4 of them are pre-existing non-conforming variances on the property, and the 5th one is not. And I'll go through all of them, and then I'll open up to expert testimony. So the first pre-existing non-conforming variance is a front yard setback. 25 feet is required. There's 24.2 existing, and we're not changing anything, so it's going to remain 24.2. There's a pre-existing non-conforming maximum impervious coverage, which is 40% required. Currently, it sits at 51.2%, but we're actually going to be reducing the impervious coverage to 49%. There's a freestanding sign square footage requirement. The requirement is only 12 feet, but currently there's a 40 square foot sign. The new sign is proposed to be the exact same size. The current sign is a little shorter and fatter, and the new sign will be a little taller and skinnier, but ultimately it will still be 40 square feet. The 4th variance we're requesting is parking. Parking is, I'm sure, a big issue, but this is one of those give and take type deals. If we increase the size of the parking lot, then unfortunately we increase the size of impervious coverage. If we decrease the size of the parking lot, if we increase the size of the parking lot, then we're increasing the impervious coverage. So we're hoping to keep it exactly the same. As a matter of fact, because we're reducing the impervious coverage, we're removing some of the asphalt. And the final variance is sign coverage on the building. This is a very unique variance that we're requesting. And you'll see when our architect provides testimony why that is. It relates specifically to the height, the length of the coverage of the wall, where the sign is located. So without further ado, I'll open up to Mr. Dunn's testimony regarding the property. Mr. Dunn?
Dan, just for my notes, the sign coverage on the building, is that the new variance?
It's my understanding it's the new variance.
That's the new one.
It
All the other are
requires,
pre-existing. Okay.
yeah, the requirement is, there's a square footage requirement of 5% only. There's a length requirement of 50% only, and there's a height requirement of 10% only. And what we're proposing is a 30% total square footage coverage. We're proposing a length coverage of 67% and a height coverage of 46%.
Could you also clarify your comment about the freestanding sign? I believe you stated that the current was 40 square feet and the proposed is 40 square feet. In your application, it shows that the current is 24.4 and you're proposing 50.
And I'm really glad that you asked about that. So one of the things that I have tonight that I'm going to be presenting as evidence is a revised version of the sign showing that it's 8 feet tall, 5 feet wide.
Do we have copies of these?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
I will present them when the architect starts providing testimony about the signs. I just haven't yet because I wanted to get this in as evidence first, and then I'll introduce that. I'm sorry.
Would you mind clarifying the current sign size, though? I believe you said it was 40, which we understand is 24.4.
So I think that's because of the way the awning is. If you look at the sign, and I also have pictures of what the sign looks like. The way that the sign sits, there's like a roof on it, and I don't think that was part of the initial measurements when they took those measurements. That's why. Do you see? Well, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, I'm not following, but if you can get to that,
Yep,
because
I will.
whether
Absolutely.
current is either 40 or 24.4.
Understood.
Okay, thank
Yep, you got it.
Thank you. Again, Jason Dunn with Dykstra Associates. This is subject of this application is 172 Woodport Road. We're here to upgrade an existing developed site. It's probably pretty well known to many of you on Woodport Road. And it has three fronts, Pinecone Lane, Hunter's Lane, and Woodport Road with access from Hunter's Lane and Pinecone Lane to two separate parking areas, separate but connected. My understanding is this used to be a drive-through for a bank. That's why you see the driveway on the west side has an arc connecting a lane next to the building and the parking area, which is a few feet in elevation above the first floor of the building. The owner wished to upgrade the building, make it look better, add some roof material and mansard roofs to have it with a more modern look, but I'll let the architect use his language for that. But so the building will be upgraded. Part of the access to the building will be changed slightly by adding an access ramp to a new entry and also exterior stairs, so that the accountant on the second floor doesn't have to go through the inside of the first floor to get to his office or her office. So this is Exhibit A1, right?
Yeah. And it's A1 because although it's been submitted to the board, there has been some coloring added to it. So we want to mark it as A1,
Let's mark it as A101, because that's my pattern.
A101.
And for the record, Mr. Dunn, what's the title on that? Who prepared it? What's the date of revisions, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. This is a sheet 1 of 2, which was submitted to the board along with this application. It's titled Preliminary and Final Site Plan Pinecone Plaza, with the last revision date of March 7th, 2024. This shows existing conditions and proposed conditions. And I know from your point of view, it's just a wash of line work, except for the coloration. The building is outlined in an orange or peach color. The existing condition on the left has some green on it, and that green has been colored just to demonstrate to you what impervious is being removed as part of this proposal. So it's part of that arced driveway we talked about, and part of the concrete and pavement in the front of the building.
Mr. Dunn, is that going to impact a vehicle's ability to traverse that turn?
No, it does make the lane a little more narrow, but a passenger vehicle and even a box truck would not have a problem getting around that. This is a 1.2.
No, it's a two set sheet, so that's just the second page of A101.
Okay, so the second page of Exhibit A101 is titled Pinecone Plaza, Preliminary and Final Site Plan, and same revision date, but this is sheet 2 of 2. On the left side of the plan sheet, it shows a storm drain connection and site construction plan. On the right side, it shows proposed lighting and proposed landscaping. I've colorized portions of the landscape and lighting plan so I can explain what the improvements are. So just to run down this list, there's about 10 items. We are reducing the pavement and adding new curb around and decrease this radius of the curve here. So that's outlined in purple. We're adding an entrance ramp and walk on this part of the building, the southwest part of the building. And we're adding the exterior entry stairs as shown in purple here also on the south side of the building. This small purple square on the west side of the building is a spiral staircase to allow roof access for maintenance purposes. So the public and the office employees won't be able to use that. It's just for roof access.
It's also where the sign will be located, correct?
I'm not sure.
All right, we'll talk about that with the architect. Mr. Dunn, there is so the top left corner of that rendering, you'll see a section of the property. What is unique about that section of the property?
This here?
Yes.
This is in right-of-way, and there is existing light pole a couple water valves, and an existing sign for, I think it's
Tomahawk Lake.
Tomahawk Lake, right.
Okay,
right.
so they don't actually own that piece of property, correct?
No, they don't. And we're not proposing any improvements or changes to that
Right.
area.
I just want to make that clear.
Very good. The board engineer in his initial review letters had said, where is the rooftop water going now and where will it be going? So he recommended that we connect it underground and connect it to a stormwater system. We provided calculations showing the pipes were the appropriate sizes and to connecting to the street without having any impact. That's the extent of the drainage improvements. This is not a major project, so there's no requirement for compliance with the New Jersey stormwater rules in that respect. We're proposing to mill and pave all the areas and restripe it. That wasn't in the initial approval, but after we spoke with the owner, and he said he had planned to do that all along, so we would agree to do that as well. The parking lot is fairly old. I'd say this site is probably 30 to 40 years old or more. I don't know. We are replacing light fixtures on the existing poles and providing 2 EV-ready spaces and replacing a freestanding sign, which we spoke about, but we'll go more into, and adding some traffic signs as well, like stop signs at the driveways. The green indicates added and existing landscaping. I know it's not a very pretty picture, but it shows you about the massing of the plants around the parking area, and between the building and Woodport and Pinecone Lane, it's pretty barren of landscaping. So we thought it would be a good thing to help frame out the building and, make the site look a lot better with landscape plants. So we are asking for a waiver for providing a loading space because the nature of these uses don't require a lot of pickup or deliveries. So if there were something that needed to be delivered, it would be very quick, and there's a couple of different opportunities for a FedEx truck or something to stop, deliver, and then leave the site. The parking areas accommodate 50, that's 50 parking spaces with 2 ADA accessible. And that's where the EV parking around the area, EV ready parking spaces would be. One of them would be ADA accessible. One would be a standard parking space. So by our calculations with the gym area expansion, we come up with 58 parking spaces required. And we are providing, again, 50 physically, but by the numbers, 52 because we get 2 credits for the EV ready spaces. So we are asking for relief on 6 parking spaces in this application. One of the reasons that works is because of the type of tenants we have. We have a proposed exterminator. They do not have customers coming in and out. We have the nail salon, which does have some customers come in and stay for several, probably about an hour or maybe even a little less. We have the women's fitness area, or we're calling it the gym, that has several members who come in at different time slots, and between those time slots, there is a span of about 20 minutes between when one class ends and when one begins. The accountant rarely has anybody come to see him or her, I don't know what it is. And if they do have a customer come, it's usually one car for a few hours and they leave. So my point is, although we don't meet the standard of the ordinance, it's my opinion this is probably more than appropriate number of parking stalls. And from the observance of the owner, which he'll talk about, he never had any parking issues here ever. There's never overflow parking on the street or people waiting. There's always been plentiful parking. There is an existing front yard setback variance, an existing non-conforming condition, which we are not adding to this part of the building. That exists right here in the northern corner up against that right-of-way. It's just short of 25 feet. So it's already impervious. So the impervious cover is being reduced, but the zone calls for a maximum of 40%, and we're asking for 49%. In looking for opportunities to reduce impervious besides what we've already done, I find it very challenging because we need all the parking, or we should keep all the parking that we have. You really, having this be a way to circulate the parking and, without cutting out this driveway, I think that's important, rather than having this be a dead-end driveway where someone could come in if the parking lot is full, if it happens to be full, they could find an opportunity to turn around. As we said, the site has been here for many, many years, so we're not looking to change it all that terrifically, just to upgrade it. So I think that's appropriate. Any questions on what we're proposing on the site?
Any of the landscape and design standards that are required by the township engineer will be agreed to and met, correct?
Yes. Prior to the previous meeting, I double-checked the amount of landscaping we were proposing here. It falls slightly short of the design standards for landscaping as far as the massing square foot areas. It's like a percentage of the parking, and because this is residential use across the street of Hunter's Lane, we would need a 25-foot berm of planting, which there is room to do. So I didn't have time to create that for tonight, but we would agree to comply with those standards and have your engineer review it if you would consider that as a condition of any approval.
Mr. Dunn, if you're okay, relative to questions, if it's okay, I'd like to let you go through the presentation,
Okay?
and, because maybe you'll answer questions as you go on, and then we can kind of come back at the end, if that's okay?
Sure, sure.
Unless anybody else has anything that you want to ask? That's good. Okay.
I should point out the location of the sign that we're proposing to replace. It's at the northern part of the corner of the property. It doesn't deter any sight distance that we're aware of. And I think Dave Simmons agreed with that in his letter as well. The trash removal is existing. It's an existing concrete pad along this driveway to the east of the building on your way out to Hunter's Lane. It's got an existing septic system where we are currently in discussions with the county, Sussex County Health Department, to make sure that that septic system is appropriate and adequate for this use. Our calculations show that it is, and as a condition of any approval, we would, offer that to the board professionals, make sure we prove that the existing septic is adequate. The water comes from Central Water. There is a fire hydrant along, here it is, Pinecone Lane. Your engineer asked for an easement around that. However, I see that it's in a right-of-way, so we could agree to talk more about the hydrant. I think also the utilities director agreed about an easement. So if we can do an easement, we would agree to do it. I just don't know if it's in the right-of-way, if we could do that.
I think Mr. Simmons' letter also indicates something about a site triangle at the intersection of Pinecone and Hunters.
Yes, it says it should be added at the intersection of Pinecone Lane and Hunter's Lane. So that would be this part of the property. And we would agree to add that as well.
When it comes to the hydrant, David, and Corey Long from the Water Department, they felt strongly to have some kind of easement, that hydrant's outside the right-of-way line of Hunter's Lane according to your plan.
Right.
It's
Okay.
on this.
Oh, this one here.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I was looking at up here. Yes, there is a hydrant within the property, and we would certainly do an easement for that.
Oh, no, if you want to go through it, you can go through it. Up to you.
That's all I have for the presentation. By the numbers, we're reducing impervious by 1,700 square feet. I don't think I said that. I just told you the percentage. By 1,700. With this landscape plan, we're adding 10 trees and 42 shrubs, and then there will be more to comply with the design standards. I mean, that's about it. Nothing really major. There are some variances. I will provide testimony, but I think maybe we should hear from Matt about the signs, because that's part of what I would give for testimony.
I also want to pass out the pictures of what the property currently looks like. I think that's important for this. So I have A102. These were photographs taken by myself on June 19th, 2024, and I've only labeled the first one, but they're all the same.
Thank you.
All right. That's A101, A102, A103. Okay, and I'm also, Joe, if you want to come up here. You might have more information about this. This is A103, and this is the sign document. Who prepared this? Was it Sig?
Yeah, this is done
Sigmar.
by Steve at Sinorama in Ledgewood.
All right, and it's dated June 19th, 2024. I have this labeled as A103.
Thank you.
Matt, you
Oh,
wanna come up?
yeah, thanks.
They were the ones that prepared.
Waiting to ask questions till
Yeah, Ron, are we
everybody's
waiting for Ron
done,
to
or
ask questions, or?
are we going to ask questions before he goes?
Everybody's testified one at a time.
While Matt's getting set up, I do want to let you know that I do frequent this site because I work right up the street, and I do go to the dry cleaner there. And I have to be honest, I've never been in there for more than 2 minutes, whether I'm dropping off or picking up. And there's only one woman that works in there, and she remembers my name every time. I have no idea how she does it. So I just wanted to just put that on the record there.
So if we could, so now that Mr. Dunn is, I believe, finished with his testimony, could we maybe ask questions relative to that testimony before we start?
He's not done with this testimony because he still has to provide testimony with respect to the variances. And the reason why we're waiting to do the variance testimony is because we have the architect who is going to provide testimony regarding the signs. And because the variances require the sign, so that's why we're doing that. But if the chairman would like, we have no objection to taking questions, if
So
you'd like.
let me just offer, you know, I think it'd be good if we wait, but if anyone has any questions that you want to ask, just to help keep it clear going forward, you know, feel free.
I'm good.
Otherwise, we will wait till they finish with the rest of the testimony.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Have these been changed since the last meeting, or since they were submitted to the board? These are new? Okay. Okay, these are revised plans provided by our architect. The latest date is 6/24/24, and I have labeled them as A104. And these have not been provided to the board yet. These were changed, and I think Mr. Samantha will discuss the changes that he's made.
What's the date on those, Dan?
The most recent date is 6/24/24.
Oh, are you gonna hand those out to us? So, okay. Thank you.
Smaller version. That rendering, or is that a different rendering?
This is it, just I added color to it.
You added color to it. All right, so that's going to be A105. A105. you're gonna go over, clarification. Same date, just with color.
It's just,
We got one sheet or
it's only just 2 sheets, just then.
Same thing.
Just so we're clear on the record then, Mr. Benkendorf, A104 or revised architectural plans plus some sign calculations, right? Because it's
That is
stapled.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Brady, yes. I didn't see that at the top there, I'm sorry.
call it a sign chart, for lack of a better phrase. Okay. And what is A105 then? You were talking about that.
Yep, A105 is the same thing with the sign calculations, but this time it's got color.
Okay.
So, yes, as stated already,
First, we have to
oh, you
swear
want to
you
swear
in.
me in?
Would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and state your name, spell your last name, and provide an address.
Sure. Matthew Smetana, Smetana, 64 Sunset Lake Road, Sparta, New Jersey.
Okay, and
Can you state your qualifications for the record? Have you presented before this board?
Yes, on many occasions, although planning board not as much, but zoning certainly plenty.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to accept him as an architect as long as he confirms his license is still good, or would you like him to go through his curriculum vitae?
So I apologize. I was kind of looking at the drawings that just got handed out. So, have you been in front of us before?
Not you. no.
If you could, if you
Motion or
could
new
maybe just cite
faces.
your
Sure, my qualifications?
Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Yes, so I've been practicing on my own private since 2000. Licensed in New Jersey. I've presented before probably 30 different boards throughout northern New Jersey and some in South Jersey. And it's my own private practice. So.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Roger Williams University. Well, it's now university, was Roger Williams College up in Rhode Island.
And you
5
got your
degree.
architecture degree there?
Have my degree, and I did pass the exam. I'm licensed in New Jersey.
Still current.
Still current, yep.
I offer Mr. Cement as an expert in the area of architecture.
Okay. Mr. Stoner, any? Okay, Mr. Ernie, any? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Accepted as an expert in architecture.
All right. So,
Before you go into detail, could you just please give an overview of what was changed from what we looked at this afternoon on our computers and to why we didn't get this maybe 2 days ago, if you did it 2 days ago? So just like what the
yeah, I don't
changes
know-
are?
I'm not sure exactly what you saw, because I did email something, but I don't know if it got sent out to everybody, but.
But what is different? What made you change and what is different?
So from the original submittal that we did a few months ago, basically, this drawing is specifically just for signs. We did have a slight error in the area calculations of the building, which I've updated on this drawing here, which reflects, slight discrepancy compared to the original drawing of about 30 square feet or something like that. So just to clarify.
Those are
and-
square footages of each unit, correct?
Yeah, so we had a breakdown of the units here, which has been added. There was some extraneous information that I took off of the original plans that were submitted, that an area that had shown up that showed 10 square foot larger than what the actual was. So this is basically clarifying all the area information on this drawing, as well as all the sign-related information for any building-mounted signs.
All right, so does this now conform to what Mr. Simmons had in his report as far as square footage? Because or maybe it was Harborview. It was Harborview, sorry. I know there was a discrepancy in the square footage, so does this conform now?
I'm not 100% sure if I'm exactly where he was, but I checked everything to make sure I was 100% where it is, so I have to check and see what his number was exactly.
Because that will affect the parking.
I'm just gonna double check so that we're.
The one sign on your drawing here for what was dry cleaner says the laundromat. That's a misstatement, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's the
dry-
place
it's
where they
still-
drop off
It's
laundry.
still
Yeah,
remain in the
they
same
called it a
business.
dry cleaner.
Okay.
That's how it was referenced.
I just named generic names. But
The nail salon was 1340. The dry cleaner or laundromat was 1250,
Right, so that's actually 1240.
correct?
That's one of the things that was
Changed,
extraneous that was sitting in the, yep.
okay? The gym was being increased to 3542.
Yeah, that I have is 3549.
Okay.
And there was one adjustment that I should point out, basically. When we first submitted everything to the board, in between that period of time and when we did this drawing, the tenant for the exterminator came in. We designed a layout for them. They did not need the additional square footage that was behind this utility room here. So that square footage has changed slightly. The gym square footage has changed slightly, and we've factored in this utility space that is shared between all the different units for phone and electric.
And that's not part of the square footage calculation for either any of the units, correct?
So that is correct, yeah, yes,
By all the units.
correct, yeah.
You want to just show the board, you want to just go through each one of the units so that they can see it there on the plan
Sure, yes.
and go through the square footage as well?
Yeah, so Woodport Road is along the top of the drawing, Pinecone Lane, and then Hunter's Lane at the bottom. So on the Woodport Road side is the nail salon, blue,
How many square feet is that?
that's 1,340. Dry cleaner is in the corner between Pinecone and Woodport, that's 1,240 square feet. The gym in the current situation is now combining one of the units that we had originally shown as an additional tenant, as well as the corner space facing the parking lot and Hunter's Lane, and then the existing gym right now. So the combined of all of those minus the utility room is 3,549 square feet.
Excuse me, 3,549.
49.
And again, so that's the box on the left-hand side is the gym?
So the existing gym
okay.
is on the left here.
Yeah,
This is going to be the expansion of the gym,
Okay.
these other two. So everything in orange is now going to become part of the gym.
When you say expansion, though, just so we're clear on the record, the building itself is not expanding, it's the interior layout that's changing.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. There are no additional square footages added to any of the interior.
Just to clarify, I thought I saw in the application or some of our professional reports that the square footage of the total space was increasing. I'm not sure if it was 100 square feet or some number that
I
the,
know now that you say that, Dean, I
Yeah.
think I saw 100 too.
I think because they're taking
Yeah,
out the corridor.
that's what Mr. Simmons' report indicates, a 100 square foot addition somewhere.
Yeah, there is no interior addition. There are additional porch space along this corner here. And these two on this side here are both covered entryways. They're all external.
What about the spiral staircase? Could that have been the additional calculation or?
I mean, that was, again, that's all exterior space. There is no roof over it, so it's basically walls.
Well, you took out the corridor. So that,
What's that?
you took out the corridor.
We did take out the corridor, so the usable space for the tenants
That's
has
where the
been
numbers
changed,
are.
yes.
So is that the 102 that they're referencing?
It's probably a little bit more than that, but I can try to estimate it.
What about the covered, the covered porch in the back, and you got the covered patio? Are those added for the building coverage?
Corey, would you mind, Corey, if you could use the mic? Thank you.
The building coverage, the two we're gonna have roofs over top of them, correct?
Right, so you have the two facing the parking lot side. Those are external space, but they are covered entries, basically.
I'm not quite sure what Dave was referring to, the 100 square feet. I see that you got the stairwell in the front, but that's exterior. You do have covered patios on the right side and a covered, walkway in the front, but they don't add up to 100, so I'm not quite sure. Doesn't look like it's a building addition, but you have some overhang additions, correct?
Yes, so the existing overhangs in several cases where I show columns now we are basically aligning with those existing overhangs, but we are adding this one overhang here to match up with a similar look around that corner, basically.
All right, and then let's talk about the second floor. What do you have there in the corner?
So on the second floor, we have, the footprint of that space has basically stayed the same. We've just reoriented it and added a bathroom internally to that space, but that is 941 square feet.
Total?
And that has its own covered entry on the exterior.
And what about the exterminator space?
So the exterminator space, square footage now is 955, I believe that is.
And where is he going to go? Exterminator?
Exterminator is the green right here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the exterminator again?
955.
955.
And what's the total?
All the interior space. It is 8,080.
So did you rerun the calculations for the parking requirements? Because this now throws things
Yeah.
off because the gym, not sure if you included this, the gym is one space per 100.
Yeah,
And the gym, it
parking-
seemed like expanded from 2625 to 3549. That's a significant increase in the gym, and that's a 1 per 100 ratio.
No, I can.
It was 3-1, but we can have, Jay, if you want to talk about it, you can. How we did the calculation.
Yeah, but this is
When,
this is going to change significantly.
when I was given the changes to the building areas, I did recalculate the parking. That's why I came up with 58 as opposed to, I think the planner had come up with 54.
Right.
By the gym expanding it at that 1 per 100 factor, it did increase the required parking. So that is up to date.
Are the site plan drawings going to get updated to reflect that? Have they been? And do we have copies of that update?
We did not update the site plan itself to reflect that, no. But we can do that as a condition.
That would have to be a condition of any approval by the board, that the parking calculations on sheet 1 are updated
Okay.
accordingly.
It's a condition, Corey, so I can
The parking calculations on sheet 1 do not reflect the item.
revise,
Excuse me?
be revised.
Yes, they do not, they don't cover the items that Jason had just commented about, the 58 required parking spaces. They still state, I think, 41.
Right, because we had used a 1 per 200 factor for the physical fitness space for our own reasons, but we're going with the conservative count as per your planner. And even speaking with Dave Simmons, in his letter, he agreed with our count, but upon further discussion, he said we should use a 1 per 100.
I mean, typically, again, just to give people a chance to look at it, we'd get that update before we come in here, so we could look at the calculation and make sure we agree. Like, for instance, the one we got on the original plan, we had concerns with. So my concern is that we're going to get it after the fact, and someone may say, well, wait a minute, that's, we don't agree with that. How do we,
We did provide this to the professionals and to Dory, I think, last week. So
Well, you know what, Mr. Chairman, there'll be, if they get approval tonight, there'll be a lag, obviously, before the resolution is put together. And if it comes in during that time frame and everything is copacetic, to use a legal term, then there's no problem. If there's a problem, then before adopting the resolution, the board would have a chance to address it.
all right, so Corey, have you seen the revised calculation? And are you good with it?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
When I say I'm okay with them based on the new plans that you have in front of you, A104. The calculations are, they're provided based on that A104, which don't match the architectural drawings we had before, correct? Because like, for instance, you talk about the exterminator, spot at 955 square feet. That's tenant number 2, which the old architecture was 1,017.
Yeah,
Not a large difference, but they are different.
right, there is a difference, yeah.
So anything they're talking about areas, there are slight modifications on the plan that they have up on the board right now. That's what the calculations should reflect.
But the usage changed, so now, based on the 3549 for the fitness center, that's going to require 10 extra spaces. Instead of 26, it'll be 36. So if you're okay with the numbers, what is now the parking requirement?
So I can go, and then Mr. Dunn can just confirm it. It's my understanding that the parking is 7 spaces for the nail salon, 6.2 spaces for the dry cleaner. There's 35 spaces for the women's fitness center. There's 5 spaces for the exterminator, and there's 4.7 spaces for the accountant. Is that correct, Mr. Dunn? Based on your calculation, or do you have a different?
With what you just said, it's going to come out to the same 58 spaces, but I actually did the division to a 1 decimal point. So the physical fitness, for instance, at 3549 would require 35.5, which obviously it's not given a half a space, but when you're talking about the total, that's how we added it up.
Ms. Dunn, if you can, one more time, just go slow so I can write down the numbers.
Okay, no
It's all
problem.
in your packet, Ron. It's there.
The new numbers are not in
It
the
is,
packet, I
the
don't believe.
email. The email is attached to your packet, and everything Jason had provided to us,
Where? Okay, can someone show me where that is?
right under the agenda
So
from this evening.
I'm reading from an email dated today to Mr. Stoner because we found out that he would be sitting here tonight
Does
for
everybody
Mr.
else have it, or am I the only one?
It's an
I don't
email.
know.
It looks like this. Everybody has it.
It was out here tonight on a day.
Yes, it was on the
All
day.
right, so we brought
On the
our,
dais.
we brought our
on the
our
dais this
existing,
evening.
and
Yep.
that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, and all the updated plans that we did receive from Jason are all in the Google Drive file as well.
Looked at that this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
We'll continue to work through it so that we have all the correct numbers before we
I don't
leave
have
tonight. Guarantee that. We don't want to be short.
Would
No,
you
these
like
are
me to
what I
read through
brought.
the?
These are
No,
mine.
I can see them here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, they brought an extra chair in for you, so maybe that's the only one. Dory, did we both get one? Because remember you brought an extra chair in? I don't know if I have that.
No, everybody got a copy of it.
All right, let me suggest that we just take a few minutes here, so everyone can find the packets that we're looking for. So as we go through this, we'll have in front of us what we need. So can we just take 5 minutes and can get a reset here? Thank you.
Sorry.
Right, this is mine because I highlighted. No, I don't have it.
No. But yes, what we
No.
received from Jason in an email, everything is on the drive, with the exception of the exhibits, the A1, the A2, which are here right now.
Oh,
No, everything is on there. You can't remove anything. You have to keep all of those.
We found the extra one here.
Everything is there.
Okay, I found what we're looking for.
As long as I'm looking at the last modified, it's fine.
That is on there as well. Yeah.
Okay, does everybody have,
we found it.
okay, is everybody good to go? Anybody not good to go? All right, we're good to go. Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
You have it?
Jay, just to be clear, why don't you read the numbers into the record in accordance with that email,
Sure.
so that we're all up to date?
Okay. The gym square footage, the physical fitness area square footage is 3,549, which equates to 35.5 spaces at a factor of 1 per 100. The balance of the uses have a 1 per 200 factor. The exterminator is 955 square feet at 4.8 spaces. The dry cleaner is 1,240 square feet at 6.2 spaces. The nail salon is 1,340 square feet at 6.7 spaces. The utility room at 55 square feet is not assigned any parking spaces. And the accountant is 941 square feet, 4.7 spaces, for a total of 58 required.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you were talking about the 100 square foot discrepancy. I think it may be close to resolved with the area that we had calculated for the accountant. In our chart up here, we had originally shown that as 861 square feet But if you added up the two areas, it was actually 941 square feet, so that is 80 square foot difference, gets us close to that 100, but that's what I would estimate is probably where the discrepancy was.
All right, you want to go through the design?
Sure.
Has this been provided to the board?
No, this is not.
Okay. Okay. While I'm labeling this as A106, why don't you start talking about what this is a picture of and when, who created it and what the date was?
We marked the other one as A107 too while you were at it.
Yep.
And,
Jenny, members
Witness
of the
can
public,
just-
can you see that okay?
and then the witness can describe them both before he starts talking, so he can go back and forth. What's A106?
So A106 is the view from the parking lot that is alongside Hunter's Avenue, Hunter's Lane, I should say, and the parking lot side. Currently, basically what we're proposing as far as the whole project goes, the whole scope of the work, was primarily to give the building a facelift. It's kind of outdated. As you approach the building from Woodport Road, basically looking at all the air conditioning units on top of the roof. Just updating materials, updating to give it more of a scale that's appropriate for a residential area that it abuts. So instead of putting tall parapet walls that are flat and, maybe not so dimensional, we've basically provided sloped roof, parapet around the entire perimeter that will block off the view of all the air conditioning units. And then where these certain accent pieces are around the perimeter of the building, where there's some triangular projections that are existing right now, we're basically just projecting them out to be more of a tower type element. Material wise, we have some samples here that we can show you, but basically it's going to be a combination of stucco, a thin brick veneer, asphalt shingles, and then powder coated aluminum columns, trim, window trim, doors, frames, as well as these louvers up on the roof. Show you this one a little bit more. So this is the view now from
That's A107.
yes. So A107 is the view more from Woodport Road side and looking over at the Pinecone Lane side as well. Again, material-wise, everything is going to match up with what's happening on the other two sides. We're proposing a tower element at the corner here to, one, buffer the access that we need to get up onto the roof, as well as kind of to be a nice marker for the building, the complex, so that as you approach on Woodport Road, driving back and forth, you'll kind of see this marker that, designates it as a, shopping plaza. Again, using similar materials, similar scale to what we're doing all around the rest of the building, but giving it a little more interest as you pass on Woodport Road. On that tower element, we're proposing to put a sign that is the one variance that we were talking about. That's the new variance, basically just to designate the plaza as Pinecone Plaza, being that it's on Pinecone Lane. And internal to this is basically a spiral stair, which would have gated access so that only those professionals that need access to the roof would have access to it. And then just, some small landscaping around the perimeter, basically to, provide a nice aesthetic on the exterior. All of these eave lines that you see right now, except for this one here, were existing overhangs. We're basically just adding columns along the facade so that gives it more grounding appearance and kind of in feel of a porch, basically. Comes the rain. I think these say more than what my drawings will say, but basically,
Pinecone Plaza sign there, is that an accurate representation of what the sign is to look like? Or is it this Pinecone Plaza sign that's on A104?
I mean, this is as close as we've gotten. We haven't actually worked it completely out with a sign company, but it's, that's.
You want to go over the
Yeah.
measurements of that sign?
Sure. So on the sign drawing, we have, everything has been scaled basically proportioned to what you see on the rendering. There's one difference is that the sign would actually be on this side, not that side. But I realized that after the fact. The height of it is 8'5". The width of the actual sign part is 4'4". And it's, several feet off the ground, basically, so it can be more visible from the road. The remaining signs here, this one has been eliminated here for now. This one's been eliminated. And we, on this drawing, reflect more accurately the actual size of those signs to meet the code.
And that's
the
on
ordinance.
A104, correct?
Correct, yes. So that's all been calculated out based on A104.
So there's two sign requirements. One is-
Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind using the mics, it's actually hard to hear with the rain,
I
believe it or not.
apologize, I'm sorry. So just to be clear, the signs on the sides of the building will not require variances, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and they're depicted accurately on A104?
Correct, yes.
Okay, but there is a variance requirement for the pine cone sign on the side of the tower, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that variance is based on percentages?
So it's based on percentage of height, percentage of width, and percentage of wall area. So everything is calculated based on this wall by itself, because that's how the ordinance has been interpreted.
So is your testimony then that if you didn't have a facade design that was articulated the way it was, that you'd have a different calculation and might not need a variance? It's kind of a function of the way the math works because you have walls that begin and end instead of one monolith.
Right, yes. No, that's definitely true. I mean, if this was a taller wall, it would allow you the much larger sign, basically. So instead of doing a parapet, if I had done a parapet wall, it would have allowed you a larger sign, but this kind of,
And are all those signs lit?
they're backlit, I believe. It's the, no? No, yes, no.
None of them were lit?
I thought the,
Internally lit, is that what you mean? Okay.
you know what, I'm sorry, could you come up and talk to them, because we can't hear?
So there won't be, the signs, that sign itself won't be backlit as in, there's two different ways to do signs. You have the backlit signs that have the light that come directly out from the letters or with the design, or you have lights that are either pointing down or up at those lights. That was the plan, was to do that.
Which one?
The
From
second,
the top or from the bottom?
from the bottom or the top, there really isn't like a design yet, but most likely probably from the bottom going up.
So they're indirectly lit.
Correct.
Okay, and that's, not talking about the freestanding sign, that's all the signs on the building, the ones above, the pine cone
Correct.
sign? Okay.
Correct. So, there's some signs in town that have backlit approvals, like on Main Street where the post office is. When the gym was there previously, that was backlit. But when I moved the gym there about 2 years ago, we did not do, it was approved for a backlit sign. We just never added it back to it. But yeah, we're not going for backlit sign approvals. The pine cone sign, the idea would be lit from the ground up.
When you say the pine cone sign, you mean the one on the tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that would be ground lit up. All the other ones are going to have some kind of sconces or something are going to shine down on them?
Correct, because the overhangs allow some sort of sconces or some sort of light projecting up or down.
Do we have a close-up? We haven't received the design for that tower image, correct? This is the first time we're seeing this from a
Correct.
distance?
Yeah, we haven't
You
done
haven't submitted that?
We haven't done a design on that yet, on this sign itself.
Okay.
While we're talking about lights, what about lights for the freestanding sign?
Those will be ground lights.
Ground lights?
Correct, yeah.
Is that different than what the initial proposal was?
You mean on the?
I thought when I
on the
read through it,
freestanding
it
sign?
said that the freestanding sign was internally lit, and I thought the building signs were
So
internally
there's
lit.
power that's run to it, but right now it's all ground lit power. There's nothing behind it. So if you were to drive by it tonight, it would be ground lit.
And that's replaced by this.
Correct. So there's still power out there, so we would still do ground lit signs.
Okay.
I am confused because the one you just handed to us says internally illuminated?
That one says eternal illuminated?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not going to do internally illuminated lights, but he may have done that because there's power run out there. So I could do that technically, but I'm basically replacing the sign, making it a little bit smaller with that. That's the request on this. And then we're going to continue with the ground lighting to the sign.
Just note that when you say you could do that, you'd have to do that with the variance.
Correct. Yeah.
And this depiction is not the accurate depiction of what this freestanding sign will be.
No,
No, this is not that sign.
It's not the scale either, right? Because the sign that you handed to us is 2 feet off the ground, then goes up another 8 feet, so it's 10 feet high. That's clearly not a 10-foot to the top of that sign. No, the freestanding,
in the corner there.
to the left.
Yeah, you pointed to it.
Yeah,
No, that is not an accurate representation of the
okay. So that you're proposing is going to be a 8-foot-high sign lifted up 2 feet. So it's going to be 10 feet to the top?
I believe, is that what the measurements are on there?
what they are on
Yeah, that's what the measurements are there. So a total of 40 square feet.
Plus the top part here.
On the post piece, correct, yeah.
So it doesn't state how much higher this is. So it goes up to the top of the sign, but then the cones, the pine cones, go up a little higher, and there's nothing
Not actually
here
quite
to
sure.
indicate how high they go.
What? I gave him my drawing.
So this is really 6'4". Yeah, when you include the
Yeah,
post, it
so
would be
on-
6'4" going across.
So this has a full measurement with the measurements on this. I don't know if we're looking at the same thing of 8 feet high, all the way to the top of the cone piece that you're talking about.
Right, and then how
5
much
feet
from the
across.
cone to the top of the cone?
That's the top measurement. So that measures all the way to 8 feet.
I think our,
Okay, but That's what I'm reading here, right?
This, if they wanted-
Is that 8 inch?
I would, yeah, I guess it's
I don't know.
18 inches.
No, that's going across, so it's 6.4 going across. Times however high it is.
Stipulate to a height, like this.
More like 18 inches.
Typically don't include the post in your sign calculations.
Right.
Just the sign itself.
I'm just probably reading this incorrectly.
I can estimate it to be
But we can stipulate to a number if the board would like. The board has an idea of how big they'd like the pine cone to be, stipulate to that size.
This is like the cedar shakes again.
We're concerned about the sign size and the pine
I
cones.
understand. The sign itself, without the posts, will be 40 square feet. That's what we're proposing, and that's the variance we're requesting. But we will stipulate to the size of the cones at the top. If the board would like us to do that, we're more than welcome to do that.
Okay.
So is this a good time now, I think, maybe to reconcile the existing sign size? Because all of our reports that you submitted, it was 24.4. So we have to get to a fact on that. Is the current sign 24.4 or is it 40?
I didn't take the measurements of the current sign.
I took those measurements.
Okay.
So the measurements of the sign themselves, actually, you know what?
Why don't we use, so you can have it in front of you, A102, Mr. Benkendorf, maybe if you hand that to the witness, as he talks, he can point out what he's talking about, and because A102 has a picture of the
Over here,
current sign.
on the
the
railing.
front page.
It's this, but if we're including the roof, then they have to include the pine cones.
Right, so I took manual measurements of the existing sign. This was here when I bought the property. So the actual design has been there. Looks like it's been there a long time. The actual measurements are 47 inches wide. Okay, and that is, again, this is not including the overhang at this point. I'm just talking about the width of the actual signage. From the bottom to the underneath section of the roof that sits there is 80 inches high,
How many?
80 inches.
Okay.
So that would be from the ground to the underside of the roof. And then the approximate measurement to the peak of the roof is approximately 30 to 32 inches above that.
What is the distance? You mentioned the 80 inches from the ground to the top of the sign. Exclude the space, right? We're not counting the space between the ground and the bottom of the sign. So what is the vertical length of the sign?
So-
excluding the open space.
Yeah, so I think what Mr. Benetti is asking is where it says Stephen Froelich, CPA.
Gotcha.
If you put your tape measure on the bottom of that and measured up to, I don't know, whatever it
Oh,
says,
the
nail
actual- so the
salon,
actual-
what would that be? Yeah.
So they're about 12 inches in height. So we'll go for approximately 5 feet.
Okay. Well, you said it was 80, so if you took 12 inches off, it would be
Yeah, so-
68?
Correct. So like my point was I measured what the full height of it was on the structure itself, but the actual signage itself is approximately 5 feet in height.
How did you come to the calculation of 40 square feet exactly?
The 40 square foot was the 47 inches wide to the 80 inches.
Okay.
I didn't even add that in there. Did I?
Didn't even add the awning.
The actual awning itself was additional space. Is that math right?
68.
Didn't add the awning, you didn't add the awning, but you did add the
When you
open
take
spot
this
at the bottom.
part out from here to
So
here
what-
is 68.
Okay, so Corey,
So it's 5.5 feet.
you're the engineer here.
High number two.
I don't think we use
that's
the
the
awning
way it
as part of the
conforms.
calculation. Isn't that like the posts?
22.
Normally, it's just a post. However, this is like an architectural element to
Okay.
to this one, so you could, the board could consider that existing being the top of that roof
Okay.
on this one. Because normally you just look at the sign itself, but that's a pretty big roof on top of this. I think I'd actually measure to the top of the roof on this one. The other one there, you're talking the little pine cones on the top, that's,
Decorative.
to me, that's a decorative element.
Right. So I think that the witness said the roof is about 32 inches high?
About 32 inches high, and it's a little bit wider than 80 inches across from
A little wider than how many?
about 80 inches.
Okay.
But the height to the bottom of the sign, the roof was 80 inches, you said?
From if you were to measure from the ground to the bottom of the awning, it's 80 inches, and then across it's about
47.
no, that's just the posts themselves.
Okay.
So the edge of the sign. So like if you're looking
80
at
wide, okay.
yeah, it's about 80 inches wide from the awning from
And
the
the
top. to the
sign is
top.
about a foot off the ground.
Correct.
Okay. There's a bunch of calculations to be done.
I think
I'm confused here, I'm sorry.
Sorry, there's a lot of numbers. So when I measured this, I measured from the ground
Yes,
to the bottom of the awning, which is 80 inches in height.
that's 80 inches.
Correct.
Okay.
The width is 47
Yes.
across. And then if you measure just the height of the awning, it's about 30 to 32 inches high, and it's about 80 inches across.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. I think you make an argument, you got 47 inches. I don't know if I'd worry about the top, how wide the top is. I'd probably take the 47 inches and the 80 inches plus the 32 if they get a total height. The sign's a little weird, little different here. So if you take 112 inches times 47,
I think
that's
maybe,
about 36 square feet.
I think maybe we'd also take 1 foot or 12 inches off from the bottom, since that's open. So I'm coming up with 47 inches times 100 inches.
That's 32.6, so about 33 square feet.
That's the current sign.
Yes, that's if you go from the bottom, the bottom little placard sign to the top of the roof.
What was it, Corey, 30?
33.
33
okay.
square feet.
I mean, I think even though we went through this exercise, I think the bottom line is that doesn't matter. We have to decide if the ordinance says 12 feet
Yeah.
and you're proposing 40, right? That's what it's going to come down to.
And if you
So it
just
matters
look at
to
the,
the degree that they may have a pre-existing right to continue this pre-existing non-conforming use, but they're not continuing it per se, they're increasing it. So that's why it's relevant. Because the
But that's-
delta becomes particularly relevant.
yeah, but that's not really part of the sign. That's, like you said, the pine cones. But if you just take the sign, which is 68 inches or 5.6 feet, times the 47 inches wide, say 2 feet, that gives you 11.2 feet. Where's, 4 feet, that's what I did wrong. Okay.
What's the size of the
about
grass
22.
area where
About
the
22.
freestanding sign is located?
Sorry.
The size of it, it's probably the largest field. I would say that you're probably from the road to the sidewalk where the nail salon is. I'd say you have about approximately 100 feet.
And how wide?
From the parking lot down to
From like the road to the nail salon?
From like,
From Woodport to the nail salon?
okay, Woodport to the nail salon, that section is probably double the length. It's probably about 200 feet. It's a pretty large grass area.
And that's the area that the sign is going in, so 100
Yes.
by 200.
Correct, yeah, roughly.
Pretty large area, right?
How far off the road is the sign?
You want to provide the testimony, Jay?
The sign is 13.1 feet from the right-of-way of Woodport Road. However, there's about a foot to the curb, so approximately 14 feet.
How close did you say to the curb, Mr. Dunn?
14 feet.
14 feet, okay.
And is it a required setback? And if so, what is it?
Excuse me?
Is there a required setback?
For a sign, I believe it's 10 feet from the right-of-way.
Okay.
Instead of turning this into something more than it needs to be, I've just spoken with my client. My client agrees to make the new sign exactly the same size as the old sign without the awning.
So whatever that,
It's the
Whatever that-
22.2.
I think that makes this really easy
Right.
if the board agrees.
But we would still like to add the pine cones. If that's okay.
In numbers, what are we agreeing to then? What are you proposing in numbers? 22 square feet?
No, I think that
32.
we came up with 33 square feet is what it is.
They should provide an
will
as,
provide
they
it.
should provide an as-built or a drawing on your
Right.
plans,
I
so that,
I see now that was a misstep on my part, and I apologize for that. We should have had exactly what it is. But
I could have my sign company provide an updated version of it, exactly templated to what it is, minus the awning section.
I mean, I think it's important to have a larger sign than what's allowed. And I like that he's replacing it in kind. That makes it a lot easier on us. But even 40 square feet, I believe would have been appropriate because you have multiple tenants here and your C1 zone, it may not have contemplated that condition. 12 square feet sounds more to me like a one-tenant sign for one building on one lot. That's why, that was all what I was prepared to say for the relief. But that's one of the reasons I think keeping the existing sign is important.
so just so my notes are right then, the stipulation is that the new sign follow the same basic, what do I want to call it? Same basic aesthetics. will be the same size as the current sign area, not including the roof or
Including the roof.
Not including the roof. Okay.
And we will keep it the same width and height, correct? Okay.
Okay.
And again, just so we're clear, make sure, is that, I thought I saw that this was internally lit. What you're saying is this will be lit from the ground, not internally lit. Okay, thank you.
So the dimensions may change some, because right now it's 5 feet by 8 feet. So you're going to either make it a little shorter or a little narrower or both. Okay.
Mr. Smith, did you have any other testimony?
Before you leave the sign, can I ask a question here? Just so I can set these numbers here a little bit. According to the code for permitted signs in the C1 zone, it says maximum height of any permitted freestanding signs shall not exceed 8 feet, and such signs shall be at least 5 feet from any property line. So we're going to exceed 8 feet with the total height of this sign, correct? That's not the sign itself, it's the total height to the top of the sign.
No, it's conforming with the old sign.
Okay, so
Which
you're
is
going to get a
8
variance?
feet Up to the roof.
I know, but you're going to get a variance for the sign for exceeding the 8-foot maximum height and the area requirement because you're over 12 square feet.
The area requirement, but we're going to stay at 8 feet. We're not going to exceed 8 feet. That's what we're saying, because we're not going to have the roof.
Okay, so that's 72 inches.
72 inches, yes.
Your sign today says 8 feet plus 2 foot off is the first placard on the bottom. That's 10 feet. So that's 120. So
Does? Okay. All right, then 8 feet, yes.
the top
So
of
we're going to
the,
meet the 8 feet requirement?
Look, we do 72 inches is only 6 feet.
So in other words, you won't go wider than 4 feet, basically.
Correct.
If you're,
It's
if you're,
like the existing sign's just under 4 feet. so
Okay.
it won't be going wider.
But the question is about 8 feet.
yeah, because I see, the way I see it is you got 4-foot sign, 4-foot width, 8-foot max. You're going to have at least a foot off the ground, right? You know, for that first sign. That leaves you with a 4x7 sign. Is that sufficient?
I think the current sign he said was basically 4 by 80 inches minus 12 inches,
Right.
Right.
like 6.
I mean, we're going to keep a gap on the bottom of the sign as well, right?
But that gap counts to the top, the height. Okay, you got two things going. You got an area and you got a height requirement going on. So that gap in the bottom, plus whatever your sign is, can't be over 8 feet.
And you're not counting the
Pine cones can be higher?
Doesn't make much
I'm not
sense.
including the pine cones.
Okay.
The pine cones, but I was joking about the pine cones. We don't need the pine cones.
You normally deal with the freestanding sign that's going to be without pine cones, but it's like, some kind of like, different type of sign. This one's unique, has a little decorative thing. My recommendation is forget about the pine cones, go to the main sign.
Current sign. That's it. Yeah, we're just going to stipulate that it's going to be within the confines of the current sign. So the pre-existing non-conforming sign that exists there now, it's going to be identical minus the roof.
Okay.
Nothing is going to change except the roof is coming off. Correct, Mr. Pasalakwa?
Yes.
Okay.
So that existing sign is 47 inches by 80 feet to the bottom of that roof, correct?
We're gonna get new measurements of the sign, the exact measurements of the sign, and it's going to comply with that sign. What's currently there. We believe the sign to be 80 inches tall, right, to the bottom of the roof, and we believe the sign to be 47 inches wide. So it's going to comply with 80 by 47, in accordance with the current sign.
The 80, though, includes the space underneath the last sign.
Includes the
Okay.
space underneath, yes.
So the sign is 68.
Yep,
right.
the sign is 68, that's correct.
So we'll get an updated drawing to reflect that.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the total for 8 feet is 96 inches. Right? Okay. I just
What?
want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Well, you're going for that. That's not what you just said.
No, I understand that. So you're saying you want the 8 feet? Okay. So we're going to have to provide new drawings for the sign.
I know, but you gotta leave here with what a number.
I know. Look, why don't I talk to my client and we'll come up with the exact numbers, and then I'll come back in and provide them to the board. Because I don't want to keep going back and forth, because I feel like we're getting confused, and I don't want this to come out of whack. So I will come back in here with exactly what the numbers will be.
So if,
So can I have 5 minutes with my client to
Yes.
just confirm the exact size of the sign that we're looking for?
can I just try something? Just make sure, I want to make sure I'm hearing. So what I thought I heard was there's a sign that exists today, and that sign has a roof on it.
Yes,
So if I take that roof off and look at the rest of the sign, the new sign will be that size.
Correct, which is.
no, that is not the case. That's why I want to go out and talk to
Okay.
my client.
That's what I thought. That's what
Yeah.
we
That's
all
what I
thought.
thought. that-
Yeah, I know, and that's why I want to go out and talk to him, because I think we're getting confused with 80 inches and 8 feet.
Okay,
That's the confusion.
okay.
I heard different, that's why I just wanted to make sure, just for clarity.
communication. So what we're proposing this evening is going to be an 8-foot-high sign. And of that 8-foot-high sign, 6 feet of it is going to actually be signage, and 2 feet is not going to be signage. It's going to be the bottom of the sign. So it's going to be 2 feet to the bottom of the signage, and then another 6 feet with the signage. And we will make it fit within those confines. So that's 32 square feet total, 24 square feet of signage. So we are above the requirement by 12 square feet.
Excuse me, Dan, could you just say the width of that sign is going to be again?
4 feet,
So it's going to be 8 foot max,
8 foot max,
2 foot on the bottom.
and then 6 feet.
What's your square footage?
The square footage for the total sign is 24.
Okay. I didn't hear that right then.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, I was saying 32 for the total sign if you included the bottom, and I was just explaining everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But it's 24 square feet of signage. So it's 12 additional square feet over the variance. For the variance.
But 11 square feet shorter than what Mr. Stoner kind of calculated.
I didn't want to
is
go
there
back
now.
to what was there. I just wanted to
You might want that on the record.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the proposal. Do you have anything else, Mr. Samantha? No? It's up to you.
Quick testimony on the sign. Basically, it's going to be a black border
Sit down, Joe.
with black letters and a white background. And I believe that covers my testimony for now.
And that's the tower sign you're talking about?
That's the building mounted sign, actually.
Okay. Okay. And those, again, will be indirectly lit?
You have an overhang, so we could downlight from the overhang.
And the tower light, the tower sign, is that included in your calculations anywhere? The pine
That's in
cone?
the calculation sheet on the last item, and that was a variance.
And that will require a variance?
Correct.
That's the variance on percentage of facade or percentage of wall or something like that.
Yes.
Right, percentage of wall height, percentage of wall width, and percentage of area of wall.
And you don't have a design finalized yet, but it's going to stay within the proposed parameters that,
Yes, correct.
and the same colors of the building, nothing to be crazy.
Right, exactly. And similar coloring and all that to the sign that we show here.
Are you proposing to bring that back to us with the final design? Right.
Sure.
Absolutely. That'd be a condition of approval.
You want the condition that they bring the sign back to the board?
I already spoke with my client about it. He was fine with that. Because we don't have a final rendering for you to see. So he was okay with bringing it back. for
So
you
it'll
to
be
see.
a final design for the freestanding and for the identification sign, Pine Cone Plaza or whatever.
Prior to memorialization, yes.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So David, when they come back to the board, what is that? When they come back to the board, what is that for agenda? That's not going to be a site plan modification, that's
No,
clarification?
because the way I've done it elsewhere, when it's a small thing, like we've all agreed on the size of the sign and we know the basic, based on this and what's been submitted, we know basically what it's gonna look like. We're just doing details. What I will do is if we approved it tonight, between now and the memorialization time, they'll get the design in. We'll see it at the meeting and I'll just word process it right into the resolution, assuming everybody's gonna like it. If somebody doesn't, then we'll just carry everything until the meeting after as we go over details. But if you get it in quickly, we just kind of work it out as a practicality between now and the next meeting.
At the date of the memorialization of the resolution.
Right,
So it's not separate,
no,
because I didn't know how to put it, how,
no.
Or we
it'll
put
go
on the
right in
agenda.
With this resolution. If it was something big, we'd do it a different way, but this is details on a sign.
We're going to go with more questions now, or?
I think Jay's going to finish up on the testimony with respect to the variances.
Chairman, dare I ask, did you have some questions on the site before I go on?
No, I'd like to hold on, I'll let you go ahead and then we'll.
Thank you. As we've heard tonight, there are a few new variances with this proposal. One is the parking, and the second is the Pine Cone Plaza sign. And now we possibly have a third, I think, because we're changing the freestanding sign. We're keeping the square foot area, but we are in fact changing it. So we'll ask for relief for that 12 square feet over what's allowed in the zone. I testified before the reasons for the sign to be that large is to accommodate multiple tenants and easy identification from the roadways. In addition to the wall mount signs, I think it's important to have a freestanding sign that's easily recognizable. The same testimony goes for the Pinecone Plaza identification sign, site identification of a building that's been known as Pinecone Plaza for many, many years is important to newcomers too, for the address of the place, but also for safety reasons from the roadway to say, you see the symbol, you see the lettering, that's Pinecone Plaza, no doubt about it. When we met out in the hall to discuss the sign, the freestanding sign size and height, it became apparent from the owner that the sign there today is actually too short. And the reason it's too short is because the bottom row placards can't be seen from a car coming down the hill toward the intersection of Pinecone Lane and Woodport Road. So that's why we're asking it to raise it to the maximum allowed 8 feet. The parking variance it's a variance for 6 spaces. We've provided testimony, or I have, that this is a multi-use plaza with uses that are low traffic generators, low impact for parking need, and it's a good mix of uses that doesn't require a high demand of parking. I don't know if we ever got on the testimony the number of attendants to the physical fitness is approximately 10 to 12. That may grow slightly because of the area change, but it may not. The class numbers may stay just the same. It's just that they're different. They're adding different stations, so to speak, or areas for exercising. This, at least for now, and historically has been a women's only physical fitness center. I think that's an important need in the community for folks, for some folks to have it away from their male counterparts, I guess. So I think that's a good thing. The uses are permitted in the zone, obviously, or we wouldn't be here tonight. This to me is a wonderful upgrade to this corner that many people see. I think it's great that the owner is willing to put this kind of investment in it and into your town to improve his business, but I think it benefits everybody. Any of the negative perceived negative detriments are farly outweighed by any of the positive of this project. Therefore, I don't think that there's any significant impact to your zone plan or to the neighborhood. I think this is a very approvable site plan, if you will. If there's specific questions about the choices we've made, I'd be willing to take that.
Okay, so is any other testimony to be given tonight?
That's all I have.
So with
I
that,
know that
let's-
there's reports we probably need to address, so.
okay, so with that, let's open up to professionals, and you can maybe run through the reports and make sure all your questions are answered, any concerns. So, Mike?
I just have some, you're speaking to the variances. Do you want to touch upon the loading space? And also touch upon, I know you did it earlier, but I don't know if that was testimony on a site plan. Now you're pivoting to the testimony on the variances. Speak to the loading zone, loading space, and to the impervious coverage.
Yes. So we are asking for a design exception from providing a loading zone. It was, what I testified to earlier was that a specified loading zone doesn't exist today, and we wouldn't want to take up any space or add pavement for that because we feel that there is not a need for that. Based on the historic uses of this, there's no loading or unloading that happens frequently here, besides the Daily Mail or the occasional package for office supplies or something. The impervious cover, I think, is justified because it has been an existing condition for all these years, and we are reducing it, of course, not quite to the 40% max, but we are reducing it by 1,700 feet, and we are adding landscape areas that don't exist today to help mitigate that overage. In order to reach that 40%, we would have to start taking away parking spaces, I believe would be the only way to achieve that. The building exists, this is a lawful structure. So I think that there's a C1 variance on the impervious cover as well. Because we need the parking and the building exists and the site exists. But, the C2 testimony applies to the impervious as well. The benefits to the community outweigh any detriment of the impervious cover.
And that request is for 49%?
Let me make sure I got the number right in my head.
I believe
I'm still thinking about 80 inches.
yeah.
Yes, we have, if it's germane, we have the existing at 51.5% and the proposed to be 49%.
It's actually bringing it closer to compliance.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And your testimony before, my last question was, I think you covered it already in your site plan testimony, but are there any reasonable efforts, additional areas where we could remove some impervious coverage on this site?
I looked at that in a very serious way, and the only place we could consider, or I did consider, was that circular drive that connects the top parking area to the lane next to the building. However, my opinion and the opinion of the engineer was that it's important to get the circulation all the way around without having to have cars turn around and backing out of that parking area.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Correct?
Yeah, I got a few items. So the impervious coverage, they did decrease the impervious coverage I was just talking about. The area that is reduced to asphalt around the, going from the upper lot to the lower lot is probably the one of the few locations that they could remove. I probably do agree that, that is about the only location if you're going to try to keep the number of parking spaces. To remove it anymore, lower it anymore, they would be reducing parking spaces, which they're already going for a variance. So I think that makes the situation worse. And that corner that they come is quite wide. That was kind of interesting why it's that wide, but you're going to make that one-way traffic though with this new configuration.
Oh, yes, that's correct. I think we had signage on that indicating that, but if we don't, we will.
There is signage on the plan, so
Yes.
you can go from the upper parking lot down to the lower parking lot, but you can't go the other direction. So I think that works toward the reduction in the width of that driveway because you only have one-way directional traffic. You talked about the site triangle easement with, at the corner of Hunter's Lane and Pine Cone Lane. You agreed that could be a condition?
Yes, and the extent of that, to me, at least sitting here, is not known, but that may impact some of the landscaping we agreed to add in that space.
I believe it's wise, and it would help that corner. You shouldn't have any landscape in that corner anyways. And if you do, it'll have to be a lower style landscaping, less than 3 foot in height.
Yeah, we would certainly agree to that, yes.
And then the fire hydrant easement, we talked about that. The parking lot, the need of resurfacing, you've agreed you were planning on doing that anyways. You're also cutting up the parking lot as it is. You put the roof drainage into
Yes, we are. We tried to reduce the impact that would have, deciding where to put those drain lines, but we would be cutting up some of the pavement.
And that condition would be to update the plans to show that detail.
Yes, we'd have to show a milling and paving detail.
We talked about the parking calculations. The parking calculations on the plan will be updated to match the email
Yes.
numbers that the board had in front of them. the lighting we talked about. You're replacing the lights, going to be the LED lights to replace the kind of shoebox lights with LED downward lit lights, correct?
Yes, they will be downward focused.
What about the posts themselves? The posts are kind of beat up, they're old, they're rusting. What's going to happen with the posts?
Yeah, they would be proposed to be replaced as well. I think we probably need a detail for that too.
Okay, so I took it as you were replacing the lights and not the posts, but you're going to do the whole post.
Yes.
Okay. That should be added on the plans. I believe there's a comment from the Environmental Commission that they were concerned about the night light, so if downward lit light would be advantageous, and the same thing with the lights for the signage. If the more lights that are down, I think that would help address that comment. The septic system, obviously, don't need Sussex County Health Department approvals. There'd
Yes.
be any condition. I'm not going to talk about signs anymore. We talked about that. Okay, dumpster pad. There's a dumpster pad on the lower lot.
Yes.
Can you talk you're gonna put an enclosure around that, correct?
We had not proposed to do that on the plans, but we could agree to do that. Yes, it's part of your design standards.
What kind of enclosure do you envision?
I was picturing a board on board, but I don't know if that's what you envision, Joe. Or if you'd rather have some kind of material that would better match the building, or maybe we paint it black. I don't.
We would use the same material to match
Please.
You know what, Mr. Dunn, could you repeat that? Because he's not on microphone and let's get it on the record.
Yes, we would propose a dumpster enclosure that would reflect either complement or match the materials on the building.
In color and type.
Right. I mean, it's no chain link. It may be something like PVC, color PVC, or painted wood, or if we can incorporate the exact material, we would do that.
Think you can do that before the next meeting, so everybody sees it before we adopt the resolution?
Yes, if
Again,
it's,
it's a
if
small
it's important to
detail.
the board, we would certainly show that, yes.
You talked about we talked about the parking lot numbers, pervious coverage. One item is the front yard setback is existing 24.2 feet, correct? Is that
Yes.
Existing condition, but you are changing the roof line on that corner, so are you requesting a variance for that? Even though it's existing condition, you're changing the roof line and modifying that corner. You're not getting any closer, but you're still keeping 24.2. I think, Dan, I think you talked about that in the beginning. You're requesting that. That's one of your variances, correct?
Yes, but it's pre-existing non-conforming. We weren't going to change it.
But
Okay, but
It's going to
You are
remain
changing.
you know,
here.
there's a series of cases that talk about
Right.
when you have like a single-story building that's in the setback. Corey and I talked about this today, and you go up to 2 stories,
Right.
that it kind of intensifies the effect of that setback. I'm not sure a sloping roof with a gable or a vent like that is much of an intensification. It's not adding a second story or anything. But I think as a technical matter from the board's perspective and the applicants, maybe we should call it out as a variance. For the reasons I just said, maybe it's a de minimis sort of effect, and we could approve it, but it should be probably noted, and I can note it in any resolution.
All right. Thank you.
And I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, let me open it up to the board.
Hate to go back to signs, but the one thing I know everyone tries to find things by GPS, and they put an address in, not a business name. It may be helpful to put the street address on that sign you have out front. You know, where it says Pinecone Plaza, but putting 172 in there somewhere or something. I think it would be helpful for people trying to find the location.
Yep, with Pinecone Plaza being on there.
We're gonna have such a large sign, so I don't see that being a problem or anything at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Good. That's it.
So the number will be stated.
Bill?
Yeah, I just have a few. I don't know which,
Bless you.
bless you. I don't know which witness to direct them to, so I'm just gonna ask you all, and then whoever's the best. That's fine. I just want to go over the business uses. So the gym, someone mentioned 10 or 12 people at a time. How many classes a day?
So, well, it's about between 5 and 6 a day, scattered from early morning to evenings,
What's early morning and what's evenings?
5:30 a.m., right? Is that when it starts? Yeah, 5:30 a.m. until about approximately, till about 7, and then a small break, and then again until about 11 o'clock.
At night?
No, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you're, 5:30, 7,
Yeah, so
11.
so if you want to make it really simple, just say it operates on off hours from 5:30 to 7. There's about a 2-hour break, or hour and a half break, and then it operates again to about 11, and then it's closed and shut down until about 3:30 until about 7 p.m.
So 5:30 a.m., couple hour breaks. Last class starts at 7.
Correct.
And the exterminator, you only expecting like 2 employees?
Yeah, so the exterminator was, the business was approved already, but we're waiting for this to finish and then that, but he has, there's 2 employees. Part of the approval was 2 trucks being parked on site, and no chemicals on site. It's literally just administrative office.
The dry cleaner, they're already an existing business. Do you know what their hours are?
I believe she operates from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. approximately. That would be, I believe it's about Monday through Friday. Yeah,
How was
it's
the
just her.
How about the nail salon?
The nail salon operates, I believe, every day, but 10 a.m. to about 6 or 7 o'clock p.m.
And the accountant?
The accountant is sporadic. It's like appointment only. Steve's been there forever. So
So it's just one client at a time.
one client at a time. Yeah, it's him and one other woman he has administrator there.
In terms of the time that you open, 5:30 a.m., are the parking lights going to be on at that time?
Yeah, everything's on timers currently right now.
What are the timers going to run? The new proposed,
So,
whatever changes?
so the new timers would be daylight. So let's say approximately 5:30, and then they change as, as the sunset changes, correct?
So, and
So
then
dusk, say, call
they
it.
stay on overnight.
And they stay on, so right now, we have them staying on till about 11 o'clock, just because of the households that are local on the backside. But we could set them to really whatever everyone wants them to do.
What about the signs on the building?
The signs on the building themselves would be, right now, there's no lit signs on any of the buildings. But if we do ground lighting or sconce lighting, we would kind of direct the same exact thing. I believe the gym, when I was on Main Street, I believe it turned off at 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
The garbage pickup, do you have is it a specific schedule that you have?
Do you have the schedule for the garbage pickup, Sharon? Do you know?
I don't know, but it must be midday because they never come when we're there. So
Okay.
it has to be when we're closed in that midday section.
And then
Again, let's get that on the record.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So approximately midday. I could get you the exact days of pickup if you want, but it's about midday.
And what do you expect the length of time for construction to be?
Upon approvals, I would say approximately, most of this work is aesthetic and then internal work. Do you want like the full scope of everything?
Start to the end.
Yeah, I would say that if we were shovel ready today, I would say approximately 6 to 7 months on everything.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have for now.
Dean?
Sure. So I want to talk about impervious coverage. So what would it take to bring this into compliance with the ordinance? And, things that come to mind are taking away the drive, and it was brought up earlier, taking away the wraparound drive and connecting the 2 driveways at the shortest distance, 2 parking lots at the shortest distance between one another. I know I heard earlier that you said that if someone came into the parking lot, the large one, they'd have to turn around to get out. But you've also testified that the volume of patrons, the volume of parkers is not really that high, and you're seeking a variance for the parking spots. So it might not be as important to have that lot have an entrance and an exit at it. What would that do to the number if you were to just connect the 2 parking lots at the closer end right across and get rid of the whole drive?
Grab this up there. Looking at Exhibit A101, Sheet 2, looking at the landscape plan. And first, I was working on your first question. What would it take? It would take approximately 6,000 square feet of reduced impervious to reach that 40%. And so therefore, I didn't catch what your suggestion was of removing.
Yeah, I mean, just throwing out an idea, I'm sure you have others, but if you connect the small parking lot to the large parking lot, yeah, bring it right across there and take out then the whole access road that swoops around
Okay.
that whole loop. Would that create savings?
Right.
Now, I'm just thinking of remove at the top edge of the right parking lot, right? Get rid of that road that comes around to the side of the building, make that all grass or vegetation. And then instead, keep the lower parking lots connected right across, right there. Yep. Is that an option to consider?
My answer is no, for a couple reasons.
Okay.
I think there are good reasons why we would not do that. To connect these two parking lots, we'd have to relocate the dumpster pad, but more importantly, it would disturb the septic system, which we don't want to do. We do anticipate that the septic system would not need to be modified for this proposal. So we'd want to keep that in place and not disturb that area. I would have to see how the parking, if that was feasible, I would have to see how the parking would work out, because we would lose some parking spaces by connecting those. We would also be adding some impervious, but by appearance, it looks like with your suggestion, we would reduce more than we add. Second of all, I think the importance of this is when you're dropping off. If you drop off people, it's closer to the building. If you don't have this access, then there's a big space of landscaping between the building and the parking lot for people to walk across. That's the only reason I would not recommend doing it that way. We'd have more sidewalks to connect things. And then also there's that issue of a dead end parking lot where if a car pulls in, they would need the ability to have a back out area, so that or like a hammerhead or something shape that takes up space as well. It's really like a balancing.
How do customers get from that large lot to the building? Do they walk across that grass? Are you expecting them to walk across that grass?
There's two sets of steps and sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
There's about a 5-foot grade of difference of height.
Oh, there is?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
He's our engineer. I said it earlier in testimony, there's a grade differential as well.
Okay.
And of course, by doing that, you would disturb a lot more land than what we're trying to do here.
Any other options come to mind? It's just that I know you're reducing it slightly from the existing, but
Sure.
the existing is really, really high. I mean, it's over half the lot. The 49 is still 22.5% above the maximum allowed.
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to help search here for other solutions to get it closer to compliance.
Would you consider getting rid of some of this sidewalk? How important is this?
I mean, most of,
Yeah, this is really tough because,
so from a
This-
flow perspective, if we're looking at, we have these parking spaces here designated for the dry cleaner. She has people are in and out one to 5 minutes, call it, right? We have, I believe it's 3 or 4 spots designated for her. Everyone walks from here to here. So if the board we could very easily remove this section here and have, whether we have a path from this side going to the proposed staircase to the roof. This isn't really used at all. So the answer is yes, we could. It just depends on from a flow perspective. because everyone from the nail salon scenario, everyone's coming from this top lot, typically down, and it's gonna be the same thing for these other two locations here. And then the gym location, everyone is typically walking around to the front of the building on the Pinecone side. So we could create something here. I mean, obviously the sidewalk's there for a wraparound access, but it very rarely gets used.
Yeah.
So Joe, if the board so choose, you would stipulate to removing the walkway on that side of the building up to the nail salon entrance?
Yeah, as long as they, you know, if everyone's in agreement to allow me to make it as aesthetic as possible from a function. You know,
What do you mean by that? Like
yeah.
stone steps to the
yes,
base of the
some sort
tower,
of,
or-
if I'm gonna remove this, I need to just have an aesthetic walkway to the roof access. I just don't want someone to be walking from dead sidewalk and then to a
Like
grass section.
stones?
Yeah, just something, or just be able to continue a path, whether the entrance to that access roof, I just want it to be.
But something permeable?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And that side and that access is just used for occasional maintenance on the roof?
Correct.
Right.
All the heating and AC units are on the roof. You know, otherwise there's no structure change on the roof, but that would be the only time.
Okay.
How big is that proposed walkway? Or the existing walkway that you're willing to propose to remove?
It's about 4 feet. I was just checking if this area in front was impervious, but it is long. I think that's about all we're prepared to offer.
So how, to the earlier question, what size sidewalk are you considering removing on that side of the building? It's 4 feet wide. What's the length of it? Is it the length of the building?
Approximately 4 by 50, because we would need to keep the sidewalk leading to the nail salon. This is
Correct, yeah, it has to stay there.
so about 4 feet by 50.
You got 200 square feet, but the owner indicated he'd need something to replace at least a part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if, just from a flow perspective, from business to business, I mean, it is a women's only location, you know, the nail salon is there, everything from a flow. From just my point of view, a 200 square foot change, if it was 1,000 maybe, it would make more sense, but I don't believe a 200 square foot change would make sense here.
Have you considered permeable pavement in the parking lot?
I'm under the impression that pervious pavement is very expensive and hard to maintain. But we haven't calculated for that, so I can't tell you exactly what that would entail. But I mean, if we remove the 200 square feet, anything that would be put in for the purpose of flow would be permeable. He would stipulate to that. So if that was pavers or some pervious concrete or something, it would make sense.
I don't know. Corey, can I ask for your opinion on the permeable pavement option? Any of your thoughts from that?
Very expensive. Very expensive. It's not necessarily, it's also the asphalt, but all the drainage you have to put underneath. I mean, they are reducing, you're getting into a part where they're gonna be reconstructing large parts of the parking lot to get it down to where the impervious coverage. What we've done is, as part of the zoning permits, we allowed the impervious cover, pavers to be put in, but the pervious pavers are put in with a stone base underneath, with the curbing on the side to help confine the water, so it goes down into, the ground below. You'd have to figure out if the ground can handle that water at this point, at this location, will it actually work? It's gonna be harsh. It's a harsh. I do think they're trying, they have made it better. You have a site that's been around for decades, so it's, trying to come back and bring it the whole way to their 40%. That's 40, what is the number? We gotta get to 40? That's
49 to 40?
To do that, you'd end up into some large reconstruction.
The length of the driveway, the wraparound driveway portion now, is that designed for 2 lanes?
Oh, now existing?
Existing, you can get 2 lanes around, but they're going to a one-way direction.
Yeah, right now it's used as double flow.
It's not wide enough for two-way.
No, but you're proposing to only make it 1 lane. And that's where is that where the most of the 3% reduction of impervious coverage comes from?
Yes, by reducing that pavement area.
What about all the way down through the driveway?
That's 12 feet wide, and I don't think your fire department would want it.
Well, your plans show 15 feet.
Maybe even the area of the steps is narrow that down a little bit.
Your plans show 15 feet. You can narrow down a little bit where you have the stairs coming down.
Yep. We could agree to do that.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. Quick question, landscaping, are you planning on using only native, non-invasive species, or can you consider that?
Yeah, I believe that was, right.
Species of
Yeah.
landscaping.
It's my time to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Environmental Commission. It did have some comments. Instead of like the spilled wine Weigela, they had some other plants that they were recommending. Instead of Norway spruce, I think they wanted to see eastern red cedar, which is Juniperus virginicana. I think that's a decent choice. The only comment I would have about the juniper is that the habit of it is kind of haphazard, but doesn't really trim well.
Yeah.
But we could certainly do that in the few areas that we're proposing evergreens. So the answer is yes, we could.
Okay,
could,
even if it's not those specific ones, just other native to this area?
Yes.
Would that be acceptable? Okay. The parking lot lighting, I just want to go back to that for a moment, because as you know, this is a residential, it borders residential areas. So I'm concerned about the nighttime lighting and making sure that residents aren't disturbed after closing. And I know there's some safety issues with keeping lights on all night, but can you talk more just about the lighting, after dusk?
I think the testimony from the owner was that the lights would be turned out after 11 p.m. Because if you turn out right when the people close or the business closes, there's still some employees lingering around doing some cleanup. So we want to leave it on until 11 p.m. Are you leaving the building lights on all night?
No, they'll coincide with,
So it'll be a dark site after 11.
11 is across the street and they're open 24/7.
Yeah.
But pretty typically on other properties that we have, we'll have lighting to the sign, we'll have lighting to the signs to a certain time. It really just depends on the townships, really. Westfield is gonna be different than everywhere else, but it's really, the timing we're very open to, but pretty typically what we've done in Sparta is the lights turn off at approximately 11 o'clock. With the outskirts of some of the lighting stays on in the parking lot, maybe a few of them, but most of the time, we'll turn the lights off at a certain time.
Okay, so I guess the parking lot are the brighter lights, right? That might affect
Correct.
residents. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. But again, I'm planning on redoing the posts, doing downward lights versus upward lights. And then you could set what stays on and what doesn't stay on.
Okay, so I heard you say 11 p.m.?
11
That's the
PM is
plan?
usually the time that we do. If the board wants something different, that's fine, but 11 o'clock is typically that time.
Okay,
So they go off except for a couple that may be required for security purposes.
Typically, yes, yeah. And you would notice that across pretty much every strip mall in town is approximately the same.
can we switch to the architectural, the visual, the photo realistic? I just want to see can you just talk a little bit about the tower that's proposed for the signage? The top of that tower, can you describe that? From here in this angle, it kind of looks, how would you describe that? Multi-angle, yeah.
Right, so it's basically made up of 4 pieces, slightly, they're staggering in height. to kind of an apex at the top, but so the further ones back are higher than the ones in front. Again, we're kind of mimicking the materials of the building already, so stucco facade with the louvered pieces at the tops. And basically they're just kind of stepping their way up, like right in the opening.
What style would you describe that in?
I mean, it's a modern interpretation of, I mean, some of these elements here are more craftsman lake style
Yeah.
roof lines, but tower being more of a modern interpretation of that.
Would you consider thinking about the tower design, the top of it, and making it more consistent with the other rest of the building, the craftsman and that, yeah, that lake design that seems like it might fit in with Sparta?
Right, I mean, so I guess one thing to factor in with that is if I do put a roof on top of it, I am adding impervious coverage, because I'm basically now enclosing it. Yeah, I mean, I could certainly explore some other options on it to see what else might be appropriate there. Or more residential feel, I guess, is what you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this style here, same thing.
That's the other side of the building,
This is more enclosed.
something like that.
Right, I mean, this
That would
is
be the front of the tower.
again, a more contemporary looking tower
Yeah.
because it's a triangular shape versus your typical four-sided square tower. So it's working off of the already existing language of the building, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking design-wise, it kind of, the large peaks like that jumps out, it's sort of in contrast to the rest. I'm not sure if that's the intention.
Well, it is to some extent to contrast as a taller tower type element. So there is definitely an intent there to stand out, especially with the front tower. It's kind of marking the building, so it is to draw your attention into, so you see Pinecone Plaza.
Maybe, let me just pause. I could ask my colleagues, anybody have any opinions on especially the front tower shape? I don't want to be the only one commenting on that.
I mean, I agree. I think, it's going in a residential zone, to try to stay as close to that as we can. I mean, I think, looking at this, you've done some good things, but that does stand out. If there's anything you could do to soften that a little bit, I think that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it would require a little bit of redesign, I guess, to kind of come up with another concept that would basically accommodate what you're looking for, so.
And so the
I couldn't
board
say, I could just sketch it
understands,
up right now.
Corey asked how we handle some of these design changes, and all of them have been kind of discrete details. That's a different design change. I would not be comfortable doing it by way of approval followed by memorialization. That I would, if we go in that direction, then the matter has to be carried, and that's got to come back as part of our consideration.
Okay, we can keep talking about that one. I did notice in one of the reports, slightly different topic, there are existing monitoring wells on the property. Can you just talk about that, the context, the background, the status of those monitoring wells?
Yeah, so when I bought the property in I believe it was 21 is when we bought that property, or 2020 or 2021. There was ground cleanup for, I believe it was a gas station years ago. And the owner that I purchased the building from, part of the purchase agreement was yearly monitoring. They're getting really close. I believe I submitted a report. I'm not sure if everyone saw it, but the report said that if they were to test it right now, it would be considered satisfactory, but they're going to clean it for probably one more year. And then the ground will be whatever parts per billion, and I couldn't tell you exactly what the terminology is, but they said they're about 12 months out from that being completed.
Okay. And just to confirm, that process, that step still will be ongoing regardless of construction, any approvals, any new designs, and that
Yeah, it's
won't
done by
affect
third
anything?
party. They actually, the cleanups in the front of this building, they have the wells up in the front.
Okay,
And they come once a year, they pull the testing, and then they send us a report.
okay.
Dean was a car dealer that closed in the sixties
Car dealer?
and then sat vacant forever. And then probably when someone finally did buy it and redo the present rendition, that's probably when the monitoring went in.
Okay. Back to the exterior for a moment. Did you mention that the color of the stucco, that the light, is that a cream, just so we have it?
I actually have samples.
Oh, okay.
I was here last week, so I figured I'd bring everything for you. guys.
Good idea.
Just give me that whole thing, right? Give me the whole thing. So we haven't like picked an actual color yet. We were kind of open to the coloring wise on this. If you guys want to pass this around and take a look at it, but we were looking at, like we said, like an ivory beach kind of color. This will be the actual stucco that we would use. So we would pick like in this realm here.
While that's going around, would you mind flipping to the other large picture again, photo?
Maybe, Dean, I mean, we can look at the colors, not saying we don't, but at a minimum, what you're showing us in the renderings is, if not exact, is a fair representation of the colors and materials that are going to be used.
Correct. Yeah, that was the point of why I pay to get these made is for that reason, for a visual, one, and then two, this is approximately what we're going to use as close as I can get to the colors.
Okay, so in that range of what you showed us here?
Correct.
Not white, not a dark color? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine for me then.
Same thing if everyone wants to see, just fronting brick and then the metal that they use for the roofs. So.
Are you actually proposing the large 172 on that side, or is that? We didn't address that. I mean, it jumps out at me as being enormous. But
It was put in there on a rendering. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't believe we really spoke about it at all. I don't have any design plan for it,
okay,
but it was more of just kind of a visual.
I mean, a number usually doesn't count as a sign, but a big number might count as a sign.
would you consider removing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because that 172 is really Woodport Road, but this is in the back of the building, so
Correct,
that gets
yeah.
confusing.
172 will be removed.
Okay, thank you. All right, this might be my last one for now. I apologize for going back to signs again. Can you go to you keep flipping, I'm sorry, I should have done this in order. Can you flip to the other one again? So the large sign on the tower that you're going to come back and show us the actual design of. Can you describe to us how much out of compliance is that in terms of our visual here? And what would it take to get that large sign into compliance on the tower?
So per the ordinance, everything relates to the size of the wall that it's on. So again, I'm somewhat restrictive if I have a small wall that's limiting what would be considered allowable. So right now, you're allowed 5% wall. We're proposing 36 point, I'm sorry, square feet, 30%. Right. 30%. So 5% would be, kind of 1/6 of this sign, basically,
Yeah.
which would kind of be maybe feel somewhat insignificant in the scale of the building, basically.
I believe the ordinance, it talks about there's a max size and a max height too, right? Not
Right,
just
right.
the
So,
wall
yeah.
size. So if you looked
So-
at it from that perspective.
Yeah, so from width of the sign, we're proposing, you're allowed 50% of the width of the wall, I should say, and we're proposing 67% of the width of the wall. So that one, we're a little bit over, but not too bad, considering, again, we're just talking about a 6-foot long wall. And then as far as the height, you're allowed 10% of the height of the wall. That's where we're over at 46%. So that one is the most significant of these.
But is there a 2 feet height restriction in the ordinance as well for signs?
So for a building mounted sign, I don't believe is there a height? I mean, it doesn't go by the 8-foot rule, at least, because all of these pretty much are starting at a point that's higher than 8 feet, just because there's no wall space at 8 feet.
Just see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, I think you meant not that they have to be 8 feet high, that they can't be more than 8 feet in vertical length. I think that's,
Height for the actual sign itself.
yeah, I think that's what he might be referring to.
Talk about the freestanding sign?
Yeah, the length is
The wall sign.
50% of the height of the wall.
Yeah, the maximum height of any sign shall not exceed 10% of the wall or 2 feet, whichever is less. And that's from the ordinance.
Okay, right, yeah, and that's typically applying for like for the linear of a sign, but which, yeah, like for all these signs here, that would be the. So yes, we would be over the 2 feet.
So the requirement is 2 feet, and that is how big?
How much?
8.5.
8.5?
The sign, I mean, we still have to determine whether or not the board wants us to somehow change the tower, because that would impact the sign itself and the wall size and all of the other factors. So if that's something that we have to consider before a vote's taken, then that could impact the sign itself.
But it's fair to say, no way is it going to be 2 feet high.
Correct. I
Okay.
would say we're gonna aim for higher. And a good portion of this sign is the pine cone, the branch, so the actual sign part of it is certainly closer to more like under 2 feet.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is if we later get to a point where we're thinking about, doing more with the tower shape, then we'll think about the sign size, and if that has to be redesigned, we can talk about that. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
All right, well, I wasn't going to talk about signs, so, but you did, so as I'm listening to all of this. I did drive past there, and it is very difficult to see the words, the names of the people. You slow down, you're trying to read it. But as I was coming up here and I passed the post office, they have a sign, I forget what it says, but let's just say it says Pinecone Plaza. That's the big sign. Then all the other names are inside. So maybe this outside sign can just say Pinecone Plaza, then you won't have to worry about what's on that wall. And you'd see the 172. Anyway, just throwing it out there as to get around all of that. Mm-hmm. When you go past the post office, it just has the name of whatever plaza it is.
So that was originally what was drawn on here, but there was a request for 172 Woodport.
Yes, 172 Pinecone Plaza. And just leave all the names off, because you can't read them anyway.
Oh, you mean on the
Yeah,
actual sign
and then
itself?
people will see Pinecone Plaza, and you won't need that, and you get,
The benefit to having the signs along Woodport Road is that road has the most vehicles traversing it. So for the gym, for example, being able to see the gym on the other side, or being able to see the exterminator on the other side, or being able to see the accountant on the other side, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So although you might have their address, you wouldn't be able to see that unless you went up Hunters or you went down Pinecone. I think it's important to have it along Woodport Road.
But as you're coming, you're making that turn. You have to make the turn because there is no other entrance, so you never really get all the way up to the sign anyway to see it. You can think about it. It's like,
I think it's important to have those signs along with.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the most traveled path, so.
But I definitely, you know, I think the Pinecone Plaza sign, I think that's important, but I think it's going to be changed if the towers change. So we need to figure that out.
Really, I was just looking to, and I hope everyone can take this into consideration, I'm looking to kind of brand the building in the town. That's kind of the point of that.
All right. My other question, if you go back to the other rendering, there is a sidewalk there, correct? So that if somebody had to park in the back and get to the nail salon, they're on a sidewalk?
Correct, so there is currently a sidewalk that stops here, but
Yeah.
we're going to continue it around to the front, because there are two entrances here and here for the other tenants.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue the sidewalk around.
All right, because if you're going to take away the other side, they would have to walk along the cars in the ice. All right, how many steps are going up to the second floor?
There's approximately 12 steps.
And what kind of material will that be?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, as far as the treads are, it's an open tread, so basically to allow snow to go through, so it
Yeah.
won't pile up on the stairs for maintenance purposes. It would be in a black finish to mimic the black detailing around the entire building.
And how would a handicapped person access that accountant's office?
I mean, currently it is not accessed either way. I mean, it's, there is no handicap access currently to
Yeah.
the upper floor.
Well, I guess can't address that. Uh, All right, that's all I have for right now.
I just have one quick question. Did you guys say that there would be two EV parking charging stations? There are
Correct, yes.
Yes.
two? Okay, great. That's it.
Can we get clarification? They can be EV stations installed or can they be make-ready spots?
I think that we're offering the make-ready, EV, make-ready spaces.
The state regulations mean you have to have two that are make-ready spaces at the minimum, or they're gonna install it. So I don't want to say you're gonna install it and then you go to the gym and they're not there.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's gotta be clarified.
Isn't there a deadline in the statute, Corey, but they have to be turned into real?
I think
EV?
there is. I don't know what it is off the
Yeah,
top
it's
of my
like
head.
2 years or 3 years or something, I think.
I think it is. But I don't think Sparta does not have its own ordinance on it, so you go by the state statute.
Okay.
I guess you got, Jenna, you done?
That was it. That's all I
Okay,
had.
sorry.
And just to follow up, 2 handicap as well? Did you say that, ADA in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick ones. So my concern, looking at the parking and the variance. So if this was approved, what I want to make sure is that if anything changes on the use in terms of what's being approved, because the variance requires it, you would come back to the board. So, for instance, if you've got retail and you've got office space there, you could replace that. But if that was become a restaurant or something else, you'd have to come back to us. Same thing with the, even the gym. I think, this gym, this fitness center's got a unique type of clientele flow, where it's classes as opposed to anyone come as they want. So want to make sure that if the use changed, that you would agree to come back to the board to vet that before going into any type of agreement with the.
Ron, do they have to come back? I'm just thinking this through in terms of procedure. I know in other towns I've been involved in, we've had resolutions that say they go to the zoning officer with the new calculation. They've now changed from gym to doctor, whatever it may be. And if they show the new calculation fits whatever we've approved tonight, which I guess we're approving a variance of 6 spaces, if I remember correctly, and it doesn't go beyond that, then the zoning officer has the ability to sign off. On the other hand, if you want to see it yourself, we can just require them to come back here.
Dory, let me ask your thoughts on that.
As of right now, what we've done is we've sent them to the site plan waiver subcommittee, and then the
Okay.
site plan waiver
That would be fine.
subcommittee would make the determination.
I just
If it
not
needs to
think
go
that
to
the
the full
board
board.
necessarily needs to take up its time or at an official hearing, if we can have some gatekeeper first.
Okay, so any new use would go to the site plan waiver committee, recognizing if additional waivers were required, the site plan waiver committee couldn't approve it, would have to come back to the board.
Right.
Because we don't have that.
Okay,
Okay?
that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other one, just a kind of maybe a silly question, but, so there's access to the roof through the tower. Is that somehow restricted that, like one of the kids in the neighborhood can't go and play, or how is that?
Yes, yeah, no, I mentioned that we would have a gated entry at the bottom to access the stair. And then once you get into that space, you basically have access to the roof.
All right, thanks. Those are my questions. Okay, let me do this. Unless anyone has any other questions, let me open it up to the public. Okay, members from the public, any questions relative to the testimony?
Jennifer Derricks, Tap into Sparta. Just a couple of questions. My biggest question is on the use. In this zone, this is
We'll
C1,
go to the applicant.
to the applicant, or to you, or to Mr.
I
Brady.
think at this stage, I think the questions go to the applicant.
Okay. It's a C1, and even in Catherine Sarmad's letter, she asks that you be prepared to talk about the uses. In the C1 zone, fitness, gym, fitness, none of those are listed as a permitted use. So how does that square with what's being proposed? I like the building, I think it's a nice improvement, but the use is an issue.
I don't think it's an issue. This is a service building, providing the service for the community. This is a specialty fitness activity.
There's, it's not a permitted use under C1 ordinance, in the
Be
ordinance.
here if it was not a permitted use. That's my answer.
So, Mr. Dunn, your testimony is what falls under a service business,
Yes,
which is a permitted use.
correct.
Okay.
It's been referred to by the applicant giving testimony that it is, they've called it several different things. A gym, a fitness center, a women's gym, and so on.
If I called a Kleenex a facial tissue, would it be the same thing?
I'm not looking for a fight, I'm asking for clarification. Thank you.
Clarified.
The other question I have is, I'm assuming, Mr. Day, that that's going to be pursued, that question is going to be pursued by the board. Okay, no response.
So let's do this. So right now, the questions can go to
Got
the
it.
applicant.
I got it. Okay, so the applicant, the next question is, you're applying under JVP Ventures and as the only, and this is just a minor thing, on the application, Mr. Paslakwa, you're listed as the owner or the proprietor, the applicant, but JPV has a partner, and I'm just curious why he's not listed. JVP, I apologize for misstating that. Again, it's a minor thing. Brower, pardon me for the mispronunciation, Mr. Patel of 9 Joseph Court on the business status report.
It's kind of an irrelevant question.
Well, the application asks for the name of the owners, and typically any major owner,
Doesn't own the property.
but
No,
JVP,
JVP Ventures does not own the property.
no, you're not owning, you're the applicant.
Yes,
And the
correct.
applicant is usually all the people that are involved with the business itself are required to be listed. It's a minor point, I would assume, but it's a technical thing, and there's a reason why we have these forms. That's my only other question. Thank you. I like I do have a question about the design. Can you explain, or is it all right if I come in? I don't understand what you're, because back here, we can't see the larger sign that you're talking about. Is it all right if I come in? Oh, this part? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Margie Murphy, Sparta. I want to know if, I guess this is for the applicant, if you are digging up and taking down the entire structure that's there now? Is this correct?
No, not at all.
You're not at all, you're just building on top of it and remodifying
All
it?
we're doing is refacing it, and we're putting a front facade
Okay.
from an appearance perspective.
Has the soil been tested with the dry cleaners that have been there, and also the nail salon and the new requirements with the PFAS and the plastics?
The dry cleaner never dry cleaned anything on site. From my knowledge, currently everything is shipped out, so nothing's cleaned.
But the E&A Cleaners was there for many, many years before this person that's there
Ground
now.
gets cleaned, it gets checked every single year as part of the contamination. But outside of that, that's the testing that's done.
Okay, how about for the new regulations with the PFAS and the plastics with the nail salon? And that nail salon is extremely busy, because I go there. And there's 20 people there quite often at a time. So, I mean, does that get into, I don't know where that gets placed, if it's in the garbage, if it's in the ground, if it's in, I don't know.
I'm just not familiar with the regulation on
The
that.
PFAS? Oh, that's the plastics that the Jersey regulations has just lessened the allowable content. And then also, I mean, it's a nice design that kind of goes with a little bit with the older buildings up above, the Askin Hooker buildings. But, yeah, I'm curious about the soil content, and the parking lot is atrocious right now. So will those steps also be done? That'll be going down to the second level?
Correct, yeah. Aesthetically, that's going to be cleaned up as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway, Sparta. I really like the design too. It's quite an improvement. As my wife indicated, sometimes you have 20 people in that nail salon. But we've only got 4 parking spaces, right? 4 or 6? Is that correct? For the nail salon, okay. And you're talking about the property being short of spaces by 6 spaces, which is about over 10% shortage. Is it this, last week we had parking issues and we just reduced the parking level, and then the week before, the month before, we also reduced the parking. So are the cars getting smaller, or are there less cars, or why do we need less parking, and why do we allow less parking in all these buildings than the Sparta regulations and the rules are? Why do we change that every time? Why does the planning board change that every time? Or why does the applicant ask for that every time?
Well, we try to explain to the board that there's justification for those counts, and every property has a specific reasons for that. Then the board can decide on each specific application, on whether or not it's appropriate, based on how the building's used, the historic use, different times of peak use. There's shared parking, and that's very much favored by smart growth.
Okay. How can, thank you, that was very clear. How can you give bonus spots when you don't know how complete the EV chargers will be? I mean, is it just gonna be wires to the charger, to the station, or will the actual Tesla charger be there? Will the actual Rivian charger be there? And functional and working, and because if you're not gonna put, well, so that's the question, will the charger be there?
That is a good
Will it be
question.
functional?
Someday it will be there. Our only obligation is the site plan is to provide EV-ready parking, which is, as you said, conduit brought to the location of a future EV charging station. The state statute is where we get the 2 parking credits. And that enumerates why if it's EV-ready, we get 2 credits. And it's also the state statute that says there is a timeline, I think it's 3.5 years, where they have to install the actual charger.
There was just on a side note, there was a question just like this in another board meeting that I had, and it was my client, he specifically said, the chargers that are gonna exist in 3.5 years are going to be significantly more efficient than the chargers that will exist today. So it's actually better to wait, but I can't testify to that, I'm just letting the board know that these are conversations that other boards are having, but ultimately I do believe that whatever is put there in a year will be better than whatever is existing now.
And
So I think,
it's regulated by state
Right.
statute. The state statute provides specifically that one of the things you can do is have these make-ready spaces. And as I said, I read it like last week, but now it seems to be escaping my mind. There's a deadline in the statute by which they have to be converted, I think, to actual charging.
I agree. We can put that in the resolution as well, but I can't find it right now. I was trying to find it here, but I think, Jason, you just commented 3.5 years.
Yeah.
You think that's
Okay.
accurate? The issue with the make ready, they have to put the conduits in the ground now, though.
yeah,
While they're doing all the work.
absolutely.
And now the, you
There'd
know,
be no better time to do it.
but also has to do with availability. I have another applicant with the Wawas, and they can't get the Tesla stations right now because Tesla fired half their EV, fast charging department. So that's hopefully 3 years from now, within a couple of years, it's a lot more friendly and different. But
How does the board secure that this EV charger will be there in 3.5 years? And what happens if it doesn't get done? So now we've approved a property, 15% less parking
It's not a
spaces.
que-
So-
Mr.
Wait.
Chairman, It's not a question at the moment.
Well, it is a question. Let me,
The question
It's a comment.
it's a question.
It's a rhetorical question.
It's a
To the
question.
board, right now, you're.
How
supposed-
does the board secure that the EV charger will be there in 3.5 years? Is there a holdback? Is there a letter of credit posted? What, is there an escrow posted?
The zoning officer
Yeah.
would take that action. That's the zoning officer's responsibility. And if we violated any conditions of approval this evening, it would be a zoning officer issue. Or a building department issue. The board doesn't drive around and
Right.
Right.
It's
they
a
don't,
zoning-
they don't,
Dory,
they
don't
don't
we
write.
have that, that compliance guy, I forget his name, Andrew?
We do. We have a code enforcement officer.
Right.
But it would be something through the zoning office, through resolution compliance, where we would keep track of that.
it's difficult. 3 years from now,
Yeah,
somebody's gonna have to
of course.
remember that it's there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
But if the state
Dory said
requires
if
it,
she keeps a list of almost everything, so you'll have to keep a EV list someplace posted on the wall that everybody can look at. But it is, I'm not sure if I agree with the statute, the way the state has it written and make it EV, but that's what we have.
The statute allows for the credit on the parking.
They allow for the credits, an incentive to
Put 'em in
make
there.
these EV spaces. You're not gonna get additional space, you have 50 spaces, and they get credit for 52, but not actually 52, but it's a incentive that the state put in that statute to try to make EV more frequent. But they're still stuck with the 50. I think the only comment I could state is when they're talking about variances, your variances, the town's ordinances are all set up, parking requirements, for, one for 100 square feet or one for 200 square feet. And you might have 10 different requirements where you have those parking, the 10 different types of businesses, type of uses to have those. It's not a fit, one fit, all type of thing. It's every application's got to look at, does that seem to be, appropriate? I think there was questions here about the uses and how the people come in and out and they're going to be utilizing these places. I think the board's got to look at every individual space and weigh that if 58 space, they can't have 58 spaces. Do they need the extra 8, or is that a fatal flaw of the application? And then, I think Dean has comments about now we're balancing out parking spaces and impervious coverage, and it's part of this whole discussion. Each individual spot.
And while we're on the subject of parking, just so I can clarify an earlier question from the public, it was referenced Catherine's report on page 6 of 10 of her report. I'm not going to read the entire paragraph into the record, but Catherine's report, my office's report, supports that the gym fits under the 1 per 100 category, and all of the other uses fall within the 1 per 200 foot category. It's the top paragraph on page 6 of 10. We commented on it, and I believe the applicant has addressed it through their testimony. They actually redid the numbers on the fly tonight, so I don't want to mislead anybody. Table 2, where we broke down the number of off-street parking requirements, has been updated this evening based on the testimony and the additional exhibits provided by the applicant. So I did the calculations. We agreed with the numbers that were presented, which is a total of 58 parking spaces required for the uses discussed this evening, plus the 50 and then the 2 for the 2 bonus spaces. So there's a 6 parking space variance that's being requested tonight, and we support that. The gym is identified as 1 per 100, broken out separately from the other uses.
And to clarify what Ms. Derricks asked earlier, who is the owner of the building? Is it prior to IPO? Because that's what it says.
No, Mark.
We didn't understand.
No, that is not. No.
It's all public record, right?
But isn't that on the application?
Can I follow up with a question, or do I have to wait?
Well, yeah, let's let Mr. Scott finish his, and then we'll bring it back to the
Okay.
dais.
No, I'll turn it over to Ms. Furman. Thank you.
All right. I am curious about that as well, because as I'm looking at this, it has the ownership disclosure statement as JVP Ventures. And, if anybody has more than 10% or more, you'd have to list it, and it's just you, so JVP Ventures, right?
I'm the 100% owner of JBV Ventures.
Okay. But on the affidavit of ownership, it has your name, but the owner's signature, and it has prior to IPO properties in 2 places, which is a different corporation.
So originally, when we submitted this application, this was 8 or 12 months ago at this point, when we first started this, the property was purchased underneath a different LLC and then was changed.
Okay, but this is dated December 2023, December 17th, 2023.
There was a lot of work in progress on this originally. And when my old property manager that doesn't work for my company any longer, that's probably what was filled out originally.
So from December to now, but these were filled out like at the same time, but they're 2 different ones. So I would like to see this corrected so that there isn't any
not a problem.
discrepancy down the road.
I'll make that correction in the application and resubmit it.
So anybody that was with prior to IPO is not going to be involved
Absolutely.
whatsoever? So who actually owns the property right now?
172 Woodport Road LLC is the company that owns that.
Okay, so that's who should be signing this.
Correct, which I own that LLC.
Okay, so that LLC though, which is different than JVP,
Correct. So typically when I do applications, I do them generally, and then we kind of switch, but that should be correct, that you're right.
and so for this, the one you just said, I'm sorry, I didn't,
Yeah, the 172 Woodport LLC.
172 Woodport,
That just needs to be changed, the name of the ownership.
and are you the only owner of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
So I want to go back just to get clarification on a question that was asked earlier. So when I look at principal permitted uses for this zone is limited to business uses of retail sales and service type, but only the following uses are permitted. And in there, the ordinance lists 11 types of uses. So now that we've had the testimony, I'm going to look to our professionals for help on this one, but I'd like to hear the applicant's version of which of those 11 you feel you fall under as a
The
permit.
bowling alleys and sports center.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn to my professionals and get your opinion on that.
It's similar to a dance studio type.
Understand.
Underneath site plan, section A.
Mm-hmm. I'm also looking at page 6 where Catherine's report breaking down the parking and comparing it to dance studios, karate studio, or similar use. And then there's also a discussion of gyms. Then our report, before I go back to subsection A, it says, while the ordinance does not have specific parking standards delineated for each use, the applicant has identified the applicant shall provide additional testimony related to the uses to best determine the appropriate parking standard. And
Mike,
that's,
I think I'm more on page 5.
I understand, we called it out on the middle of, again, that top paragraph on page 6 of 10 on the uses for the applicant to provide additional testimony and tie it to the uses that are within, now I'm back on the top of page 5 of 10,
And I
the
think the
principal.
issue there is, Mr. Dunn said this is a service use which is permitted, but if the paragraph on top of page 5 is accurate, while it says service uses are permitted, it then throws in the kicker, only the following uses. So it's kind of like, even though it uses the word service, it kind of limits it. And so how does that get read? And I think according to Mr. Benkendorf, well, we think we fit in generally with the part that deals with bowling alleys and
Sports centers.
sports centers.
Yeah, that's correct. I had a brief conversation with Catherine about it, but she's not here, so I don't want to say anything out
And
of
I
turn.
believe the gym, is the gym there today?
The gym? Yes, but again, I wouldn't, I don't really know that it's a gym. You
Right.
come there for classes. You don't go there and like pump iron,
understand.
like it's not like,
It's a small group training studio,
yeah, it's
Instructor-led?
literally, it's classes.
Instructor-led?
instructor-led.
So your position is, it's a sports center?
It's a
It's
sports
Sports
center.
center, yeah,
So I'm just looking to the
yeah, and it's
professionals
classes.
for their thoughts on that.
And the classes are limited in size.
Hmm?
You know, a gym generally, it doesn't limit how many people can come,
Understand.
but classes would be limited.
I think with those qualifiers, then it's, you can make the conclusion that it fits within sports centers
Yes.
Is it solely instructor-led? Is that what you're testifying?
Correct,
with
yes.
those qualifications.
Corey, any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a planning, type issue, and it's whether or not it's either it's in that sports use or a retail use. It looks like the only two that would fit under the permitted.
All right, so it looks like the way we're looking at this in terms of a motion would be that this would be a sports center.
With the qualifications that were testified or provided in testimony on the record. Class led, and there was a number of other ones.
What
Instructor
makes,
led.
what makes a sports center different from a dance studio, karate studio, since they're all led by instructors? And is there another place where gym is listed, or is gym just not listed anywhere?
We were in the, still
Like in the ordinance, is gym listed anywhere, like where that is permitted?
I'd have to research the ordinance to answer that question.
So, excuse me, I'm.
Can't, I don't even see you.
So I think the question's been asked, it's been answered, it's a sports center. I think we've got we've got a position from our professional, so I think we wrap the motion around that. Does anybody disagree with that?
I would like to hear, because it's Mike, right?
Mike?
Yeah, Mike
Yes.
said he was going to research that.
I would, if you give me a few minutes, I'd have to research the ordinance, give you the definition of gym, and discuss the differences between the definition of gym, if there's one in our ordinance, versus what the qualifiers were to the sports center that they testified to tonight. That's the difference.
Okay.
And just so the board is aware, we did make a number of Oprah requests. I know Dory worked extremely hard to try to find the previous resolutions related to this property, but unfortunately, she was unable to find them. And I don't, so we couldn't even refer back to old, and that's why I had the conversation with Catherine, is it?
Yes.
That's why I had the conversation with Catherine regarding this, and we discussed the sports center and bowling alleys at that time.
And I did discuss it with Catherine prior to tonight's meeting, and she specifically talked to me about that use qualifying for the 1 per 100 and qualifying on this site, but I can't tell you the conversation, which she did not go into details of the conversation that she had with the applicant's attorney or the specific qualifiers tied to it.
Are there different parking regulations for sports centers?
It's more, it's, you have to give me 1 second.
Joan, do you mean compared to exercise and fitness centers?
Dance studio, karate, yeah. I mean, because if you're going to define it as a sports center, we have to know what those regulations are. And is there a definition that describes a sports center, rather than just guessing at it?
I was just on a search. I can't find anything that's the definition of sports center. A lot of times there's different sections of the code they refer to sports center tied with the bowling alley. I find other sections that ties into recreational uses. I find other sections that tie it into, the indoor recreational uses. I think all the zones were done at different times, and the wording is not the same from section to section to section, so I think it's up for interpretation.
And under the parking standards, the closest one that she identified was dance studio, karate studio, or similar use. So that's what she used for the parking standard, which could be different from the standard for the use itself, because when we calculated the parking, we don't have one for this specifically in our ordinance, so she went with the one that she believed was the closest one, which is actually more restrictive to the other uses, most of the other uses. And that's why she called out, instead of being 1 per 200, it should be 1 per 100. I'm only talking about the off-street parking requirement. And that's why she went with the one that says or similar use.
Is there something, parking for regulation for bowling alleys? Since it's being lumped in there?
I do not see a parking standard for bowling alleys.
I think, again, when you look at the parking standards, there's a few things that are listed there in the table. And our job's going to be pick the one that best fits this. And is that a permitted use here?
Yeah, there's only for commercial use, there's only eight.
Right.
Yeah.
Eight different divisions of, uses. You got retail, office and banks, medical, hotels, motels, funeral homes, dance studio, karate studio, restaurants, real estate office.
Is anything less than 1 per 100?
Now, 1 for 100 is the most stringent one.
Yeah.
I assume that's what,
And our
they
park-
decided that, because the turnover and everything for a gymnasium is going to be pretty high, so I think they probably went with that.
So even if we,
And our off-street parking requirements don't reconcile with our permitted uses.
And they're not the same, they're not addressing the same thing.
They're not
So they
addressing
don't
the same
necessarily
thing,
have
so I
to-
just want to make,
Mesh, right.
I'm just trying to make that leap between the two and understand why she called out that one, like it's the most restrictive one, and she used of similar use. And I'm only talking about the parking parking requirement right now, not the use.
all the current tenants that are at this building now, besides the exterminator, which is only, you said 2 employees, is there any use of street parking?
No, not that I'm aware of. The parking lot is pretty empty when you drive by it. Just so everyone knows, the gym has been there for several years, so it's not like it's been approved previously for use there. And the calculation on the parking at that time with a different board was, I believe it was 1 spot for every 200. That's how it was originally put in there, and also in Main Street when it was there previously.
Or is it safe to say that for the gym to be there, there had to be a certificate of occupancy, so it's kind of been predetermined?
Correct.
So with that, can we make a motion that recognizes this as a sports center, and if you're uncomfortable, you could abstain or vote no?
I'll make a motion.
Can we do that?
I'd like-
Is that our role?
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, if there's a big issue, interpretations are before the Board of Adjustment. But a planning board has an inherent right to look at wording of this nature and interpret it for how it's going to apply it in a specific, a specific instance. So I don't see any issue with the board saying sports center, given that it's not defined in the code, et cetera, is the category that this fits under. And like the
recognize
chairman
that-
said, if you don't believe that's the case, you vote no.
But again, recognize that, again, so they've been given a certificate of occupancy for this use by the zoning. So there's been a predetermination that's there already. So,
Motion's on the table.
okay, so I'd like to, if we can make, the motion should be, are we voting on just the use, or are we voting on approval with conditions, or?
Just the use is separate, right?
Okay,
First,
we'll do the use separate. Okay, so, would anyone like to make a motion to accept this as a sports center?
Yes.
I'll second.
Is there a second? Okay.
Yep.
Dory, roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
abstain.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Joan Furman,
Abstain.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day.
Yes.
4 yes and 2 abstain.
So that's a pass.
It's a pass.
Okay, so we've now made that determination. So now the next step would be, let's put together a motion, if we could, with your help.
Before we get to that, we
Okay.
did not have public comment. We have
Ah,
public question.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody from the public have any comments that you'd like to ask?
And because it's comment, it's testimony, so I need to swear you in. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name, spell your last name, and provide an address.
Jennifer Derricks, Dericks, Tappan to Sparta. I would just request, do I get to ask a question? That since you made a pretty significant interpretation of the use, that be memorialized in the resolution saying that accepting it as a sports center, as a gym, with the understanding that it's instructor-led and no other fitness use, so that in the future, if somebody else comes along and says, oh, well, it already was approved for this, there isn't that stretch or that flexing of a use that we keep saying. Thank you.
I think the better thing to do is define what a sports center is.
But for the purpose
Sometimes when you hit these tough questions, that's the trigger for either something coming from the township committee down to this board, or from this board going to the township committee saying, we should add a definition to the ordinance. And this is the time maybe to do that
Yeah.
in one direction or another.
That's your ordinance list.
All right, any other comments from the public?
Hi, Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway, Sparta, New Jersey.
Let's square you in, Mr. Scott. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. What dictionary does the planning board use to define sports center? Because I'm looking at the Cambridge Dictionary, and sports center is defined as a building where you can play different sports. And specifically, it says all seater, amphitheater, ball yard, bowl, bowling alley, box seat, clubhouse, dugout, grandstand, loge, neutral, off-track, oval, racetrack, raceways, skating rink, stadium terrace. It doesn't say instructor-led exercise.
But I say the answer is, we didn't use a dictionary. We had to make an interpretation. And we also relied on that it's a pre-existing use that's been approved as such. Any other questions from the public? Comments? Okay. Any other questions up here? If not, Mr. Brady, you could help us with a motion?
Yeah, got a lot of notes on
Yeah.
possible conditions.
Yeah.
I'll run down them as best I can.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Brady, quick question. Mr. Brady, didn't you say that you weren't comfortable doing any kind of resolution tonight
Well, yeah,
because that's
that's
going
a
to
good question,
change?
because that issue raised by Dean is kind of hanging out there and
Yeah.
hasn't been resolved. So let's resolve that first, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe we can go out in the hall and talk about the tower?
So,
Maybe before you do that, see how the board feels.
Okay, yeah.
Not that Mr. Blumetti's opinion should be just disregarded, but maybe everybody should weigh in on it.
So again, with these meetings, they should end at 10 o'clock. We've gone over a little bit further. I think we may have to carry this to another meeting, as much as I hate to do that.
The thing is, then, if it is carried, that would be the perfect opportunity for this change to be made. I was going to suggest, Mr. Chairman, put 10:15 as the deadline instead of 10, and maybe let the board figure that out, and then we kind of go from there.
Okay. Good with that? Okay. Okay.
Make your pitch.
Okay, sure. I'd like to make a motion that the applicant come back with a redesign of the top of the tower, especially the top of the tower, to make it more consistent with the rest of the building and a residential feel, and I think you called it a craftsman style, a little bit more possibly suitable for the area.
Second?
Discussion.
Any discussion? Anybody have thoughts, comments?
As is.
On the new proposed, if you're going to go through the effort of making a new proposed plan, is the signage, the front signage standing one, going to be altered as well to match what we discussed tonight?
I would assume so, yeah. I mean, it's gonna all depend on the design of the end product in order to determine what,
I'm sorry, I'm specifically talking about the freestanding one.
oh, the freestanding.
In other words, everything that we discussed tonight, are you going to update your renderings to match what was discussed?
Correct. Sure.
Yes.
So I guess we got a motion, we have a second, so a roll call, please. Oh, I guess we open up to the public.
No, it's a
Okay.
board action
Okay.
to do that.
All right, roll call, please, Dory.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Jeanette Burke,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Joan Furman,
Yes.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day.
Yes.
With that being the case, Mr. Chairman, that's going to have to be redesigned, and as I said, I'm uncomfortable with saying that's a detail that can be adopted between action and memorialization. That's a different idea. So this should be, in my opinion, this should be carried. I don't know when the next meeting is with the board, or when the next meeting is that's reasonable to expect the redesign to be submitted.
Right.
But that's where we are.
As soon as possible, I think.
So I know we've got more than a full plate for the 17th, and this one has some variances, so I think we have a little bit more time to act. So given the schedule we're looking at, Dory, I'm thinking August, unless we can get us another special meeting.
That would be correct. So the next meeting that we would have would be August 21st, unless the zoning board cancels their July 24th meeting, then we may be able to use that evening. But we will not know that until their July 10th meeting.
Brady, I have a question. Since considering we have a very light board tonight, when assuming that we have more members present, whichever date that Dory just mentioned, we have to run through the whole thing again, or?
No, the board members who aren't present tonight can listen to the tape and then participate in the next meeting. Given what Dory just said that we could do it in July if what?
So the zoning board meets twice a month.
See.
Normally, they cancel their second meeting, but we won't know that until they have their first meeting of the month. Make a determination, then they can advise me the next day, just as we had done for this meeting.
Well, if the applicant can meet July, what we could do is announce that it's going to be on for that July date.
17th.
And then if the zoning board doesn't cancel, so we're not available to meet, then it can be posted and carried without further notice.
The concern I have there is I think when you look at the July date, we've already got at least 4 applications, so
We do.
I don't want to promise that we could hear them, knowing that it's probably just not, I want to bring you out and have you sit through this. That just wouldn't be fair to you.
So do we want to take just the August date then?
Well, I think that's probably the best date if you would agree to that. And then if something comes up sooner, we can always come back and revisit it.
To clarify, the possibility would be perhaps July 24th if the zoning board cancels, or if we can find some other.
Thought it was the 17th. Is it?
The 17th is the regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Right.
It would not be that. It would
You're
be the-
never going to get
no,
it in for that.
It would be the 24th possibly, if not, it'd be August, unless we
It
find
would
a
be the
special.
24th, but only if they tell us that they're canceling, but we
Yeah.
have to carry to a date specific.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And if we can get a quorum for a special meeting in the end of
Correct.
July, so
Absolutely.
that's a whole other story.
So maybe it would be better than if you just take August, plenty of time for the redesign and communication with the professionals and getting every detail right.
That's fine.
And that'll be August 21st.
August 21st, 7 o'clock here, without any further notice. Okay.
And one thing, if I could ask, is, I think there was some updates to drawings that need to be done.
Yep.
If you could get that to us in advance, this was hard tonight, and I understand,
Sure.
the reason, but I think it goes better for everybody if we have time to look at them before we come in here. We could probably get to an answer much faster.
Understood. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Much appreciated.
Appreciate it.
Do you guys see this down here? Tom? We have to do another minute. We will. No. Okay, folks, where they're going, so for tonight, being that this was a special meeting, I didn't have any other business on the agenda or any council updates. So unless anyone does anyone have anything important that you'd like to put out here before the next meeting?
No, just like to share that if you saw last night's council meeting, there was a lot of discussion around the funding allocation for the master plan work, and the introduction was approved, and now it'll be discussed again at the next council meeting, which will be the fourth Thursday in July, so the 23rd will be our next council meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, unless anybody has anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm-
before that, you need to open to the public
Thank
for
you, I'm
things not on
sorry.
the agenda.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. All right, anyone from the public like to talk about anything that was not on the agenda or related to an application? What's that? Thank you. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, I said.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.